All right, we're going to get into episode 11 now. And it's 11:11. There you go. That's pretty cool. Spooky 11:11:11. Spooky. Today is Friday, by the way. It's May 15th, and it is 11:11 in the morning. As we go into episode 11 of the Madman's Daily Unequivocal Comedy. And we're going back to horror, but more aligned with that 80s type of horror that's more relying on playfulness and kind of a folkiness, where kids are the ones bringing the story to life. Before I did this video, I watched a quick YouTube clip, or there's a YouTube channel called Religion for Breakfast. And back when I was writing these episodes, it was one of the videos that really stood out, one of the channels, that really stood out to me when dealing with religious concepts. The Book of Enoch, which I mentioned probably before. I don't know it. I did read it, but I don't remember it. It's one of those things that you have to read and kind of put it in a section of your brain and store it in there, but I'm not a religious scholar, man. I did read it around this time, the Book of Enoch, which is not in the Bible, but it is an ancient text that even Muslims and Jews and Christians all kind of accept at one point or the other. It's not in the Bible, of course. I think maybe in Ethiopia, it's still kind of accepted as scripture, but I don't want to get too deep into the political in a way. Anything that's relevant to this book, it's just because I'm writing a fictional story about angels and demons and apocalypse. And I don't think the Book of Enoch is like the Revelations or anything. But the Book of Enoch was mostly interesting to me because of the story. These angels came down and had sex with women, and they gave birth to the Nephilim, the race of giants. Like, that's like science fiction, man. You can use that same story concept and just say aliens came down, like Scientology believes something similar, right? Ancient alien consciousness. People came down and had sex with humans and made some different race of people. Yeah, how can you not use your imagination there to reconfigure that story in a way? We met Beverly twice in this series so far. Episode 2, she's Lori's neighbor, who's like an ROTC teenager, but she's really this ancient, immortal, angelic spirit, and she's the one that leads Lori back to her peace, and she becomes stardust and creates that constellation in the sky. And that's her role in that, is to be her kind of guide, her guardian. And then the episode Rinse and Repeat Part 1, we meet Beverly again. She's thousands of years later. She's guiding Lamb to meet his quest. So when I read through that the second time, and I'm like, yeah, so she's like a guardian angel leading these people to their destiny or whatever, helping them at least. She can't force them to do it, but maybe she has her own path written in the stars. Because then the issue of free will came up again. If there's divine inspiration to guide somebody, or to do the opposite, to negatively injure someone, if you're using that kind of mentality, and that individual is either going to benefit from it or lose something, like a Job story. Joe didn't have Joe. Now I'm like mixing Job and Joe up all the time, since Joe is kind of fashioned in the same type of spirit as the Job's Book of Job, Joe from Marathon, and the story yesterday. And yeah, even the Book of Job, how much free will existed for that guy? I guess he had free will, but the devil kept fucking up his life, killing his family, making him sick, taking his wealth and resources. And I guess Job, his free will was just to say, either I'm going to go kill myself now, or find a new place to live, or I'm just going to keep, waking up each day and dealing with this bullshit, but there's nothing I can do. So I just accept my fate and keep my faith in whatever this is. I guess that's the message I get from that. But how much free will is there if you have all these negative forces pressing down on somebody? I don't think it's a level playing field at that point. You could look at it as a divinely rigged system. Like I mentioned, the rigged system of politics and other shit. Corporate culture is very rigged and full of bullshit and manipulations, but when it comes to the book of Job, it's like Job's life is divinely manipulated. It's being rigged by whatever you want to call Satan and God as well. It's a weird story, but the book of Enoch is the only reason it caught my attention was that story that the angels came down and had sex with a bunch of women and they gave birth to like a race of giants. Like it's just an interesting concept. I don't know if there's something like that with Jehovah's Witnesses too. I want to say something similar in the creation story, but again, I'm not a religious scholar. I've never studied this stuff. If you want to learn about all the ancient stuff, which I'm interested in, look up that YouTube channel. It's called Religion for Breakfast. What is Jehovah's Witness? How are they differ from regular creation myths? Because I'm kind of curious now to see if there's anything that comes up. Jehovah's Witness creation myth. Am I right to call it a myth? I guess. All right. They believe in a literal non-evolutionary creation by Jehovah, where all basic plant and animal kinds were created separately. They reject evolution. They are not young earth creationists. They believe the 6 creative days in Genesis, epoch, like periods lasting thousands of years. So it's not really 1 day, 2 days. So they also believe the earth must be billions of years old. So everyone's a little bit different. They believe evolution is a false theory. All species were created as distinct kinds. I don't know if you could really prove that. Can you prove the opposite with fossil records or how different species evolve, natural selection? They believe in the Noah flood, and human existence is limited to about 6,000 years since Adam and Eve. So there's a lot of differences. Even if it's a form of Christianity, there's so many different details in each type of denomination. I don't even know if that's true. Is Jehovah's Witness a form of Christianity? Because I don't even know if that's true. I want to say yes. Yeah, it's whatever this word means, it's a non-Trinitarian, millenarian Christian denomination founded in the late 19th century. Maybe over 8 million members around the world. So they don't believe in the Trinity either. There's a lot of different things. I don't want to get too deep into this right now, but I'm bringing this up because of the Book of Enoch. If you want to go down that rabbit hole, go for it. It's pretty interesting. I did read the book, but this was 4 or 5 years ago, and I don't remember anything in there besides maybe the different types of angels that the book kind of describes, but even that I don't remember at all. And I have it in my Kindle, but I don't think I'll be reading it anytime soon because it's a heady book to get through, very difficult to get through it. But if you like that type of thing, you probably already know all these stories. If you're new to this, that's what Beverly really represented in this. She's one of those immortal spirits, whatever you want to call it. I just look at her like an angelic being because that's the type of mythology I grew up with. So she shows up in a couple more episodes, or, well, no, just this one. She showed up in episode 2, episode 9, and now she's going to show up just briefly in this one. And I just wanted to clear that up if people were curious about that. I'm mixing all kinds of shit together, man. I said it before, I don't think religion and science have to be enemies or combatants for the future of humanity's imagination. I don't look at it like that. So I'm writing some science fiction stuff, but I'm including mythological elements like the griffin that I put in there. Same thing. I compare an angel to the griffin. They're both mythological creatures that, for whatever reason, became symbolic of different periods of ancient civilization. I talked about the griffin a little bit yesterday. What is the symbolic significance? Symbolic. I know it has something to do with gold. Symbolic significance of griffins, and when were they created? Was it Egyptian, Sumerian? All right, griffins. Of course, they're a body of a lion and head wings of an eagle. They symbolize a powerful fusion of earthly strength and celestial wisdom. They represent guardianship, vigilance, royalty, divine power, and protect sacred spaces and treasure across ancient Greek, Persian, medieval European traditions. So I don't know when it first came up, somebody just drew this cool, like Napoleon Dynamite drawing a liger. Somebody drew this cool thing and said, all right, we got a new myth. They were known as the Hounds of Zeus in Greek myth, and Shridal, I don't know, Shirdal, D-A-L, in Persian myth. They guard treasure, gold, divine secrets. So there was something that in medieval art and Christianity, they said the griffin actually represented Christ. So maybe that's what I read. You saw Manny preaching from his altar in his abandoned hotel church. He was standing underneath a griffin painting. So maybe that's why I put that in there. I don't know. It's a symbol of Jesus Christ, with the eagle component symbolizing divinity and the lion representing humanity. So that's cool. The eagle is such a powerful symbol, man, especially in America. The griffin is also in royalty and nobility, representing vigilance and unyielding protection. They're also linked to Apollo and the sun, representing divine surveillance. All right, that's enough of this, but there's something to it that just sparked my imagination when I was writing a lot of these stories. A lot of these symbolic elements are just to put something. I'm looking for other plot devices. It's not being lazy. I'm not just scrambling to put things together. Like, this is missing something. Throw in an angel. Throw in a griffin symbol. Some point in the writing process, that those things pop in my head. Then I'll watch videos like Religion for Breakfast, that YouTube channel that I mentioned. It's really good. The videos aren't that long. Some of them are only 15, 20 minutes. Like, you can learn about the history of the Jesus fish and anything, any type of religion he goes into. Zoroastrianism. I can't even say it. All the duality religions. He probably talks about the Cathars and all that interesting stuff in the beginning of organized religion, when things were still getting figured out politically and geographically. People are kind of battling for position in the global race for religious dominance. So it's all good. It's a really good channel. I wanted to mention it since I did share it originally when I when I wrote this story and put it on my Substack. All right. Episode 11. It's called Rebels. My soccer team when I was a kid, it was the Pennsauken Rebels in southern New Jersey. And I shared one of the patches from that on my Substack post. And the original concept of this was just make a horror story of some kind dealing with the kids' soccer game. A bunch of kids go to a soccer tournament in some weird town in Pennsylvania. Based on my childhood, we used to go to the Poconos a couple times. We had a big soccer tournament. So originally it was just have this weird little soccer tournament, and it's also some kind of apocalyptic event. So as the kids are playing, there would be some weird apocalyptic event with demons and angels fighting it out. And I just had this cool image like that these kids would be like in the middle of this crazy end of the world battle like that. Because again, we human beings think we're the center of the fucking universe and we control everything. It's just something innate within us. Maybe it's a colonial thing or a cultural thing where we think we're the top of the food chain, but if demons and angels, they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck about, well, maybe more the demonic side. Beverly is kind of leading people, certain human beings, towards a path and protecting them for whatever reason she's doing that. But yeah, so that was the original concept. As I was going further and deeper into this story, I was watching Wrexham, Welcome to Wrexham, and learning about the coal mine disaster. I remember a friend of mine mentioning Centralia, Pennsylvania, and then that's what really got me to write the rest of this story. So I didn't call it Centralia. Centralia, Pennsylvania, there was a mine fire in the 60s or whenever, and I believe it's still burning underground. You could go to certain parts of this town, which is now a ghost town because of all the dangerous toxic fumes, I guess. It's just constant underground fire. There was a weird story. I think they were trying to burn their garbage underground or something, and it just set this fire because of all the oil or coal underneath, or I don't know the exact science of how a fire could burn for fucking 60 years or whatever it is. But just go look it up. There's documentaries on it. Centralia, Pennsylvania. The mine fire was in 1962 in this town. It was kind of a bustling town, and then sadly because of that, it just slowly, over the years, it just disappeared. People moved out, left their family homes for generations behind because of this fucking mine fire. So now it's like a ghost town. So that seemed like a perfect setting for this story. Even though I don't call it Centralia, it's a town based on that. Actually, the video game Silent Hill used that as a inspiration as well. So I'm not the first one to be like, wow, this is perfect for some kind of horror story. What if this fire is opening up a portal to hell and releasing the demons and all these other mythological creatures, some good, some bad, that have been buried underground symbolically, like buried within our minds, going back to that famous quote that the greatest trick the devil played was to convince the world he doesn't exist. Because that's just a cool concept to me. Whether you're a strong believer or you don't believe in any of this stuff, or you never even heard of what the Bible is, because you're on some remote tribe in some jungle somewhere and missionaries haven't reached you yet. So you don't even know what the Bible is. You've never been in the presence of any organized religion. It's just your ancient heritage, wherever you fall in the spiritual spectrum, if one day you just notice that demons are now on Earth fighting angels, or Cyclops are back, like I talked about, the army of Cyclops, or I don't know, you want to talk about even vampires, because that's a part of this story too. I'm hesitant to write a story about vampires because it's been done a million times in so many different ways. But I had some moments in my own life, so I'll get into that later when I get to the scene I'm talking about. It fit this story. I'll just keep it like that. There's a coolness to vampire lore, more than zombies, more than anything else. Because vampires can be like these immortal demons feeding on blood and other shit. Like, it's always interesting. Even as a kid, Interview with the Vampire was one of my favorite movies. It kind of freaked me out when I was little. Because before then, I was like, oh, vampires are just like the Count on Sesame Street, or I don't know. I don't even think I saw The Lost Boys as a kid. I didn't see The Lost Boys until maybe in my 20s or 30s. I was way late to that party. But watching Interview with the Vampire, like, wow, they could just be normal people. Maybe there's people that are really fucking vampires, man. And you start having more of an imaginative space regarding vampire lore, and that's probably why I wrote about it in this story, because it is a big part of this. But basically, that's then the log line is, what did I come up with? A youth soccer coach reconnects with his team after the tragic death of his son. That's kind of the inciting incident. And now he must battle demons both literally and metaphorically. So the coach is kind of a main character, but there's also just the group of soccer kids, teammates. Again, I go back to Goonies and Stand By Me, and I'm writing another jailbreak type story here because I love those horror movies. You get a bunch of young kids before they hit puberty, where they still have some innocence left before they enter the real world. That's a type of consciousness that you'll never really get back. Maybe if you have kids of your own, you can kind of relive that through your own children. But the way your mind was, that innocence type of appeal when you're 11, 12 years old, I think that's why that age group in horror movies is so good, because it's good versus evil. These are kids that are untainted. They're just trying to be, they still have that idealism, that spark, and whatever faith they have, they still have all that shit. None of it is jaded by any kind of cynical, other cynical type of outlooks. They don't have that yet. That's why that's appealing to me. It's why nostalgia is a huge business. It's why I still buy Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic books on Kindle. It's why I'll still watch those cartoons on Amazon and watch old cartoons from the 80s, because it brings you back to that mind frame where you're just innocent consciousness. You don't have all these elements of cynicism. You don't know what the ego even is back then. Kids can kind of be slaves to their egos too, but I don't think they do it purposefully. They're still trying to figure out all that shit. Depending on your upbringing, I guess. But yeah, I did mention Goonies, Stand By Me. There's also a couple of books besides the Book of Enoch. I read The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley. I read Cosmos by Carl Sagan. I also read another Sagan book, The Dragons of Eden, which was, I think, even better. I enjoyed that one. It gets into how reptile brains are different than mammals, and why we have these almost preconceived notions within the human consciousness as part of a larger network. Going back to like the mycelium network, yeah. It's nothing unusual. It's just I don't know. It's been a while since I read that book, but there were parts of that book that really stood out to me. Carl Sagan, Dragons of Eden, and plus there's just the title of the book. It's mixing religion and science. Like I like stuff like that. I mentioned Tom Petty yesterday too, and throughout this story, he's the soundtrack to this story. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. The album from 1991, Into the Great Wide Open. Yeah, so I don't want to just say Tom Petty, like not give the Heartbreakers credit. I know the guitar player Campbell, he's one of my favorite guitar players. I forget his first name now, but I always enjoyed his type of soloing. Forget his first name. I was going to say Bruce Campbell. Isn't that like an actor? Who are the Heartbreakers? I want to give, because I mention Tom Petty every time I talk about the music, but he's not the only one in that band. That's kind of, all right, Mike Campbell, yeah. Mike Campbell's lead guitar, mandolin. Benmont Tench is the piano, organ, keyboards, and vocals. Ron Blair is bass, vocals, later touring bassist. Stan Lynch was drummer from 76 to 94. I've heard of Howie Epstein, actually, bass and vocals. Some documentary I watched with about Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Yeah, it's something Howie Epstein. I remember that name. Scott Thurston was rhythm guitar in 91. So I guess he joined for this Jeff Lynne produced album. Jeff Lynne produced that Into the Great Wide Open. Steve Ferrone was drummer from 94 on. So yeah, it's good to mention the people's names. Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers. That's the other one. I guess he was. That's such a good name. I guess they just said, "Fuck it, we'll use that name too." Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers. New York City punk rock band. Former New York Doll members. Yeah, I never heard of them really, or heard their music. I've heard that name. But yeah, I don't want to just mention Tom Petty. I know he might have penned a lot of the songs and had the more creative brain as a songwriter, but yeah, it's bad when you don't mention the other people in the band. Like Tom Petty did it all himself. But there's funny parts of this movie. There's some dark parts, but not really. Even the dark parts with vampires and demons, I try to make it pretty light. Maybe this could be rated PG-13. There's no sex or anything like that. Hopefully it could be a movie that, young kids could watch and not get traumatized by. Because I'm not trying to make this. I think for this one, I intentionally said, don't put any F-bombs, don't use fuck, don't use cunt, maybe not even shit, I don't know. Because I wanted it to be a Goonies type of experience that people could watch with their kids, even if they're like 10 to 12 years old. Like, everyone's different. Some kids can handle horror movies with no problem. It's not going to keep them up at night. So it's up to the parent what the kid can kind of handle. Would you show your kids like Little Monsters, that Fred Savage movie, or I don't know. I mentioned the Angelina Jolie movie, Maleficent. That was really good. I was surprised how good it was. Maleficent, 2014. Yeah, that's the Disney movie. Story of Sleeping Beauty from the perspective of Maleficent. It's really good. I was really surprised. I was not expecting to like this movie, but it was just captivating. The art design, the cinematography was really good. So it's cool when you get kind of a welcome surprise, like, I guess I'll watch this stupid Disney movie, and then by the middle of it, you're like, holy shit, this is amazing. um, yeah, it was actually pretty successful. A major box office success, the fourth highest grossing film of 2014, directed by Robert Stromberg. So it was really good. Angelina Jolie, Elle Fanning, Charlito Copley, I don't know. All right. So that's a good comparison. You could take your kids to see that movie probably. It was probably PG-13 or it was just PG. There's some dark shit in that. It's almost even like Lord of the Rings. Would you take your kids to see that movie? I saw that in the theater. I was stoned out of my mind. The first time I saw the first Lord of the Rings. I think I was actually working at this movie theater, but I had a day off or a night off, and I went to see it, and I was stoned out of my mind. And I swore the whole time watching it that it must be about marijuana. I'm like, wow, The Ring. First of all, I didn't know what Lord of the Rings was. I didn't know J.R. Tolkien. I didn't know what the hell this story was, that it was a trilogy. I never even heard of The Hobbit as a kid. It wasn't a part of my upbringing. So my first introduction, my introduction to Lord of the Rings was being stoned in this movie theater, watching the first one, the Peter Jackson, the first one, whatever it was called, Fellowship. And the first scene where they explain the story about how the ring is this ultimate symbol of power, and whoever can, whatever harness the power of the ring will take over the seven realms or whatever the fuck it is. And I'm just like, oh my God, this movie's about pot. This movie's about pot. The ring represents pot. Whoever can harness the power of marijuana will take over the world. And that was all I remember leaving the movie theater, like, oh my God, J.R. Tolkien. Well, later on when I found out what it was, and like, he must have been a pothead. He wrote all these stories about pot. He fucking, he created his own language as a tribute to marijuana. And eventually you kind of learn it's about the Nazis, fascism, World War II, humanity, good versus evil, you know, the normal medieval folklore elements of story. But to me that day, or that night, the Lord of the Rings was just about pot. It had to be about pot. It just made so much sense. But would you take your kids to see that movie? Because it is dark, man. Like, Stranger Things was dark. I'm sure kids watch Stranger Things, but there's some occult symbolism, satanic stuff. And I love it. I'm not criticizing it, but would you show that to an 8-year-old? Some of the later seasons that got really dark. Some of those monsters are pretty gnarly, but everyone's different. There's some 8-year-old kids that have a stronger stomach than I do. So you never know. Just because a kid is a kid doesn't mean he can't or she can't handle images like that. Everyone's kind of different like that. But, all right, I'm going to start reading it now. I think this one's a little bit longer, so it's one of those scripts that kind of is a tweener. That's how I'll term it. It could be a full-length film, or it could be an hour-long episode for my series. Because we're looking at 84 pages. It's actually my longest script of the Madman's Daily Unequivocal Comedy. 84 pages is right there as a feature film. I think a lot of horror movies are around that page limit. Maybe Halloween was around that. I remember reading the script of Halloween, and I don't think it was that long. I don't think it reached even 90 pages, maybe. It was one of the cooler scripts that I read through. Um, I don't know where I found it. There are random sites online that I don't know how people have these screenplays, but I found like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I kind of read through that. I read the Matrix script, Django. I read that script. That was pretty amazing. If you want to become a screenwriter, just start there. Well, take classes and learn the ABCs of it, and then just dig into screenplays. Instead of reading books, read screenplays. The ones you could, almost like how people do with movies, movie clubs, they'll go, all right, we're going to watch every best film of the year from 1950 on. Just go back 20 years, because there is an award for best screenplay, and you could develop a good structure like that. Hopefully you don't try to copy any of those writers, but I was kind of in that mindset. I was more interested in reading other amateur writers, like to see where I lined up. Um, you could do that on Coverfly, which is something else now. And there's other sites that I would go on where you trade screenplays with other people, and you can kind of give notes. All right, very quickly, the best screenplay of 2026 is a movie called Sinners, Ryan Coogler. Don't know it. Anora, Anatomy of a Fall. I've heard of that, but I didn't see it. All right, 2023. I did see this movie. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Amazing movie. Belfast, 2022. Did not see it. Promising Young Woman. Did not see it. Parasite. I did see. That was 2020. Green Book, did not see it. Get Out by Jordan Peele. I think I did see that. These are all the best screenplay winners of the last whatever. Manchester by the Sea, I did not see that. Spotlight, I did see. That movie is pretty fucked up. There's two Michael Keaton movies in a row. Spotlight in 2016 and Birdman from 2015, which I talked about before. 2014, Spike Jonze, Her. All right, Tarantino won with Django. Midnight in Paris. I might have saw that. Is that the one with Owen Wilson, or he like sees Hemingway and all these people? Might be. The Hurt Locker. I might have seen that. The King's Speech was good. Milk. I did not see Milk. Yeah, Midnight in Paris was pretty good actually. Owen Wilson, yeah. He's magically transported to 1920 to meet all these famous artists and shit. That was actually really good. Juno, that was all right. Little Miss Sunshine, all right. That's one of my favorite movies. 2007. I read that screenplay. Crash, it was all right. That's 2006. Eternal Sunshine, yeah, that's amazing. I did read that one too. Lost in Translation, all right, I could see that. Talk to Her, don't remember that at all. I never heard of that one. Talk to Her from 2003. I've never heard of that movie at all. Maybe it's in a different language. Habla con ella. A Spanish psychological melodrama directed by Pedro Almodovar. Yeah, I've never heard of that. Gosford Park, I did see that. That's that famous director guy. Almost Famous, all right. American Beauty, Shakespeare in Love. Good Will Hunting, yeah, that definitely deserved it. That was kind of a notable one. Good Will Hunting, yeah, it is a great movie. Fargo, definitely. Usual Suspects, Pulp Fiction. So Tarantino won twice. The Piano, I don't remember that. The Crying Game, I think I saw that. Thelma and Louise, all right, it's a decent movie. Ghost, not really my thing. Dead Poet Society was pretty good. Rain Man, that's a classic movie. I love Rain Man. Moonstruck, I don't remember that. 1988. Hannah and Her Sisters, Woody Allen, don't remember that. Harrison Ford Witness won 1986. All right, as we go into the lower 80s, I don't remember. Tender Mercies, well, Gandhi, all right. Chariots of Fire, Melvin and Howard, Breaking Away. All right, yeah, I love that movie. I mentioned Breaking Away. I didn't know that won Best Screenplay, so good for that. That's a great movie. Breaking Away, yeah, 1979. That's a great movie, man. When I was talking about Marathon, I kind of said how that influenced that. All right, so Woody Allen won a couple times. That makes sense. He's kind of a Annie Hall. I'll stop there, but yeah, go through some of those screenplays. I've read some of those. Some of the Tarantino ones are interesting to read. If you can find them online or purchase them somewhere. And Eternal Sunshine's really good. I would recommend that. Birdman was a pretty wild ride. I like that movie a lot. All right, I'm going to start reading. I just wanted to give that little advice. Like, if this was me teaching a class, you could listen to me talk about 3-act structure and character developments and saving the cat, if that's a thing. I think it is. And all these other plot devices and how to do non-linear versus linear. And I'm sure there's plenty of books on that. But if you really want to get into a screenwriting career, which I'm still trying to do, I would say just read a bunch of famous scripts, and you can finally, after you read 10 or 20 of them, maybe you notice something that's common among all these scripts. But usually what I notice that they're all kind of unique in their own way. All right. We're going to begin. I'll try to get through 40 pages or so and then come back later like I did yesterday. We're going to fade in on the soccer field. The Rebels in red uniforms are comprised of 10-year-old boys, and they're playing against a team in black uniforms. As Coach Daniels, in his 30s, athletic build, follows the action on the sideline, Coach Daniels, "Let's go, boys, keep the pressure on." So he's yelling at the kids from the sideline. He notices his son Willie, skilled player, making a run on the far side of the field. Coach Daniels is yelling towards his team, "Switch the field, switch the field." Mac, a tall, burly player, wins a header and sends a perfect pass to Jordan, the pretty boy, who quickly sends it to Zeke, who spins around a defender and passes to the open Willie, who sprints all alone towards goal. He now zips a perfect shot into the top corner and celebrates with the rest of the Rebels, his teammates, while family members are cheering from the bleachers, and Coach Daniels pumps his fist energetically. Coach Daniels, "There you go, boys. Way to play like a team out there. Great work." Timmy, a frail, wimpy kid, rises off the bench and tugs at his shirt. "Timmy, you think I can go in now, Coach?" Coach ponders for a few seconds, then taps him on the head. Coach Daniels, "Sure, Timmy. Wait until the next game. I promise I'll find some time for you." Timmy sighs in disappointment, but then sits back on the bench and cheers for his team and eats an orange slice from a bowl. Now we're at a parking lot a little bit later. Coach Daniels is tossing a bag of soccer balls into the back seat of his car as Willie, still in his red uniform, Willie is his son, sneaks up behind him and grabs one. Coach Daniels, "Hey, watch it, Willie." Willie sprints away towards the field where Zeke stands ready in goal. Coach Daniels, "Where you going?" Willie, "Penalty kicks, Dad." Coach Daniels, "Don't you think you've had enough action for one day?" Willie ignores him and sets up a shot as Zeke prepares himself in net as the two kids are practicing penalty kicks on the field void of anybody else. This is after the game. They're just practicing penalty kicks between the two friends here, the two teammates. As Coach Daniels watches it with a grin. Coach Daniels, all right, you boys have fun, but make sure you bring that ball home. Willie zips the ball into the net past the diving Zeke. And they're speaking at the same time. Willie saying, yeah, Dad. Zeke saying, no problem, Coach. They switch positions as Zeke is now juggling the ball, and he sets up a shot against Willie in goal. Coach Daniels, and get in before dark. He smiles at their enthusiasm and drives away. While Zeke runs to strike the ball. Zeke, just try to stop this one, Willie. And then we just cut there. All right. Now we are later that night. Now we're at nighttime. This was the daytime, yeah. They finished their game. Zeke and Willie are staying after the game to practice penalty kicks. Now it's nighttime at the soccer field. Zeke and Willie pass around a soccer ball under the sea of stars. They're kind of in some suburban, rural community here. Zeke, no way Batman would ever lose to that weakling. Willie, Splinter is not a weakling, dude. He was like the first rat sensei. How you think the Ninja Turtles got so strong and powerful in the first place? Splinter taught them all that ancient karate stuff. Zeke, if I was in a fight, I would want Batman backing me up, not some mutant rat. Willie, but he's more than just a mutant rat. He took down Shredder all by himself, man. So these are just two kids talking their nonsense. Just then, a pack of black bats zipped down towards them, sending the two boys sprinting away in a panic towards their bikes on a bike rack. Zeke, let's get out of here. Willie, you still rather have some nasty bats backing you up? Zeke, I sure would if it was Batman. They speed away from the field. So that's just two kids goofing around. Some creepy bats come out of the woods and they kind of freak out. All right. Moments later, we're down a suburban street. Zeke is bouncing the soccer ball as he and Willie break at an intersection on their bikes. Zeke, I see you tomorrow, Willie. Willie, I heard Mac got Sonic the Hedgehog. It's supposed to kick some serious ass. So this is probably the early 90s when Sega Genesis was coming out. Zeke, nice. He tosses the soccer ball to Willie, then speeds away. Zeke, make sure you... Oh, no, I'm sorry. What am I doing here? Yeah, so Zeke is the one at home. He's passing the ball to Willie, and then he's going to his house. And Zeke saying, make sure you make it home before the bats get you. Willie, I'm not afraid of no dumb bats. He laughs to himself and pedals slowly in the opposite direction, while a suspicious van turns its headlights on from behind and drives slowly towards him. As it creeps closer, Willie turns and notices, then launches the ball towards the front windshield and speeds away. So as Willie said his goodbyes to Zeke, he's riding his bike away, and this creepy van is kind of right behind him, following him with the headlights off, and then they turn the headlights on. They're creeping towards him, and he's like, what the fuck is this? And he throws the soccer ball at the front windshield and speeds away on his bike. He goes into the woods, jumps over a curb, and now he's on this dirt path in complete darkness while the suspicious van slams the brakes and parks. Willie's yelling, just leave me alone. You don't want to mess with me, man. The two men in the van quickly exit, but we don't really see their faces yet. We just see that they're kind of, I don't know, maybe they got weird kind of boots on or some shit. I don't know. Maybe we see their tattoos that I'll get into later. But we want to make this kind of a mysterious chase here. It's pitch dark. You can't really see anything. You can't see their faces, at least. Yeah, although we don't see their faces, They seem to move with superhuman speed and agility, zipping through the tall trees like winged beasts. Willie speeds on his bike farther into the desolate area, only the stars to light his way, as he unknowingly rides towards the edge of a high cliff. He slows down at the last second, then grabs onto a log to save himself as his bike plummets over the cliff and crashes loudly below. The two men appear in a flash, seemingly out of nowhere, and hold Willie up by his shirt like a puppet. Unknown Man 1. Acesta este der bun recruit. I think that's Romanian language. I think that's what I went with here. And it translates to, this one is tough, good recruit. All right. An owl hoots in a tree, distracting them, allowing Willie to free himself and kick them both fiercely in the shins. He slips on some leaves while doing so and falls backwards into the darkness as the two men reach but miss. Unknown Man 1. Cretin, akom tribai sagasam atuman sara. I don't know if I should read this because I don't know how to do the pronunciation. You need some Romanian characters there. I'm just going to read the translations here. Idiot, now we have to find another tomorrow night. The two men fly down the cliff. So these are not humans. And they land over Willie's body. And the one guy's speaking Romanian and it's translated. I guess this will be subtitled. Don't call me idiot. I'll find 5 more tomorrow if that makes you shut up. The unknown man 1 inspects Willie's body and feels no pulse. So if I didn't make it clear, yeah, Willie fell off the cliff trying to escape from these two guys. The unknown man 1 is saying, discretion is always priority 1. But he's saying that in Romanian. Unknown Man 2. It looks like an accident to me. So they're saying, what should we do? Should we get rid of the body? And the one guy is saying, yeah, but it looks like an accident. They step back as we get a closer look at their biker boots now. And Unknown Man 1 is saying, come on, there's another town not too far. We drift away from the tragic scene as Orion's belt constellation shines brightly in the clear night sky. So right from that first 5 pages, we get a really tragic incident where Willie plummeted to his death trying to escape from these creepy guys. All right. That's the beginning of this whole story. If this was a Stranger Things season, that would be the episode 1 right there. The whole season is going to be in relation to Willie's tragic death right here that everyone will just think was an accident, but we saw what really happened to the poor kid. All right. We're now in Coach Daniel's living room at nighttime. And on the screen is a super 2 years later. And remember, that was Coach Daniel's son. Coach Daniels is a bit older, out of shape, disheveled, sleeping on a couch, bottle of whiskey on the table in front of him, empty beer bottles scattered on the carpet. And yeah, it says 2 years later. He moves around on the couch like he's having a nightmare as Carl Sagan's Cosmos plays on the TV. And we're listening to Carl Sagan's voice from the TV. This is a stellar nursery, a place where stars are born. All right. Now, in the morning, Coach Daniels is eating Count Chocula cereal in the kitchen as he stares out the window towards some kids passing around a soccer ball in a neighboring yard. He shuts the window and curtains, then sits back down and eats his cereal in the now dark, silent room. Now he's inside Willie's bedroom as Coach Daniel sits upon his race car bed, swigging his whiskey bottle, a globe behind him on a desk. He flips through a photo book and starts to tear up a little. Coach Daniels, we're looking at these photos. Coach Daniels is bending down on one knee with his entire soccer team, the Rebels. Another picture shows Willie celebrating a goal with his teammates. Coach Daniel shuts the photo book and weeps to himself. A little bit later in the dining room, Coach Daniel sits on the carpet swigging his bottle of whiskey, staring at printouts scattered on the floor of locations from a travel website. One of them says Brazil, one of them Ireland, one of them Russia, Thailand, Turkey, and another one Mexico. He shuts his eyes, shuffles the papers around, then chooses one, just like blindly. He appears disappointed in his selection as he crumples the paper into a ball, tosses it behind him, then swigs the whiskey bottle. Now he's back in the kitchen, and he's finishing off the bottle of whiskey. A little bit later in the day, he spins around a globe, the one that was in Willie's bedroom. So he brought it down with him, and he's pointing his finger at random places as he spins the globe. You know, that usual scene in a movie, The Last King of Scotland, I think it was something like that, where that kid was throwing darts at the wall. And wherever that was in Africa, I think that's where he went. So he's spinning this globe and he's putting his finger down on Canada, and then he spins it and then he lands on Romania, and then he spins it again, points on Peru, spins again, and he points on Djibouti, wherever that is in Africa. Moments later, he's in his office, in his house, his home office, and he's typing into his 1990s desktop computer. We look at the screen and he's typing, "Is alcohol legal in Djibouti?" A very early version of a search engine. This is the early 90s, so Google didn't exist. Maybe Yahoo, maybe it was like Alta Vista, one of those really early prehistoric search engines. So he squints towards the screen and he clicks on a link. Now we're in Coach Daniel's basement, his workout room, which probably hasn't been used in a while. It's all dusty. He's doing some chest presses on his workout bench in this very disorganized room. His first attempt goes well and he brings the bar up, but the second attempt gives him serious trouble as he's fighting to bring the bar back up. He finally does. Then he tries again, but this time it's a disaster as he's desperately sliding the weight bar onto the floor to avoid serious injury. So he sits up, huffing and puffing, wiping blood off his chin, and he stares across the room at a wooden crucifix on the wall. He stumbles towards it, removes it, and tosses it into a laundry basket. All right. So what are we showing here? Coach Daniels is 2 years after his son died, and he's still in this miserable type of he can't get over it. He's an alcoholic now. He's all messed up. He's probably not working. And maybe his wife left him. He's all alone in this house, and he's like, I got to get out of here. He's planning to move somewhere else. He's trying to just pick a random place where he could drink himself to death, kind of like leaving Las Vegas. I mentioned that a couple talks ago. Pretty good movie. So that's his motivation now. His son had a tragic ending. Originally, I was going to make his son die from cancer. I needed to come up with something a little bit more related to this story. So instead of the cancer thing, I changed it to these weird Romanian bikers who we'll meet later in this story. They were trying to kidnap him, but it went tragic and he fell off the cliff. So that was this inciting incident right there on page 5 of why this story is going to go in this direction. This is the former coach that we saw in the first scene, very happy, clean-cut, all-American dad, and now he lost his son and he's just falling into that hell on earth. I would assume him and his wife kind of had their outs. Why isn't he with his wife still? They probably just divorced or something, and he's just alone in this big suburban house and kind of falling apart over the last 2 years. All right. Now we're going to leave him for a while. We're going to return to Zeke. Zeke is having a dream, but we don't quite know it's Zeke's dream yet. But from that crucifix being tossed into a laundry basket, we're going to cut, and now we're at this weird countryside, kind of surreal type of a feel to it. We're drifting through this desolate country. Black smoke is rising from a crevice in the rocky ground where a trapped deer carcass rots, maggots devouring whatever remains of its flesh. Now we're in a different part of the country at nighttime as we're drifting through these dark clouds through 7 mountains on fire. And we're descending erratically towards this ornate crystal throne atop one of the mountains. A horn echoes loudly like an old Viking call to war as the throne catches fire and a demonic vampiric face forms from the black smoke. So a pretty short dream here, but that's the lasting image you want to keep in mind. We're just drifting through these dark clouds towards 7 mountains on fire. There's this weird type of medieval throne, and this loud horn is echoing through this countryside as the throne catches fire and a demonic vampire face is forming from this black smoke. So it's almost like that first scene of Lord of the Rings that got the introduction to that story is so awesome, man. The CGI, whatever they used to do that, when they showed all the beginning stages, when they first formed the rings and everyone wanted to kill each other, it's so well done. The first Lord of the Rings, the first maybe 10 minutes of that movie is absolutely just captivating. Somebody like myself who never knew what Lord of the Rings was until the movies came out. I was probably like almost 20 years old or so. I never knew Lord of the Rings existed. Never in passing, even The Hobbit. I never knew The Hobbit existed or Lord of the Rings until Peter Jackson did his movies, which is very odd that I think about it now. All right, so how do we know this was Zeke's dream? It's because now we're going into Zeke's bedroom. Remember, Zeke was the kid that was playing with Willie on the night that Willie died. They were like best friends, teammates like that. Zeke is sleeping in his bed, a Team USA soccer blanket over him. A framed picture rests on his dresser of him with Timmy, Mac, Jordan, and Willie in their red soccer uniforms, making goofy faces. He opens his eyes from this nightmare and stares directly at a small plaque on the wall of an angel sculpture and the words, "If I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take." And then he rises up from bed in a panic. He calms himself down seconds later by grabbing a soccer ball from underneath his bed and dribbling it off his barefoot knee and thigh, counting every time he's able to keep it off the ground. Zeke, 1, 2, 3, 4. He's just counting how many soccer dribbles he can do. His mother, Liz, in her 40s, shouts from behind the door. Liz, off screen. "Zeke, hurry up and get dressed. If you miss the bus again, you're walking." Zeke ignores her and keeps counting the dribbles. 5, 6, 7. The ball drops to the floor. Zeke. Zeke, "Mom, you messed me up. Now I gotta start all over." She pounds on the door. Liz, off screen. "Now, Zeke." He sighs, grabs the soccer ball, and keeps dribbling. Zeke, 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's counting his dribbles again. A little bit later, a school bus is riding through a middle-class community, and the leaves on the trees around them are the color of autumn, starting to change color. Inside the school bus, Zeke is dressed in a Catholic school uniform, and he's sitting in the back of the bus with Timmy, Jordan, And Mac, as Mac rises and pounds his chest like a wild animal, Mac. We mighty rebels, ready to attack at any given moment, no matter the place or time, with no hint or of doubt to weaken our fury. To those sacred halls of Valhalla. Mac is howling wildly, like a madman, like a professional wrestler, while Jordan places a Color Me Bad cassette into his Walkman and listens through his headphones. Mac is catching his breath now. Man, we should have just skipped school today and practiced penalty kicks. Zeke, would you just relax, Mac? It's our year. I feel it. Believe me. Timmy takes out a sports card pricing guide magazine and flips through it. Timmy, one more week of mowing lawns, and it's all mine. Mac turns his head towards him while chewing on some big league chew. Mac, what's yours? Timmy, Jerry Rice rookie card. Gonna make me a very rich man one day. Mac, you need to stop being such a geek and focus on this tournament. You better not embarrass us. Timmy, what did I do? Mac, I only recall one person missing their penalty kicks last time. Timmy, yeah, well, sorry, I wasn't ready back then. It would have been Willie's turn to kick. Zeke, Mac, and Timmy eye each other and share a few seconds of somber silence. Zeke, yeah, Willie was always the best, but we can't be thinking about that now. This might be the last shot we got to win this. He places his hand out. Zeke, for Willie. Timmy places his hand on top of his. Timmy, for Willie. Mac smacks his hand on top of his. Mac, for Willie. He reaches out and takes Jordan's headphones off his ears. Jordan, hey, what gives, man? Mac, we're trying to bond as a team here. Jordan stares at him confused. Mac, just say, for Willie. Jordan nods his head in understanding, then places his hand on top of his. Jordan, for Willie. So the four kids are just having a moment before they go to the soccer tournament in the school bus. All right, now we're at Coach Daniel's house again. We're meeting Russ. Russ is in his 40s, R-U-S-S, Russ. He's mild-mannered and he drives his minivan by all these suburban homes as Coach Daniels in a hooded sweatshirt, black sunglasses. He's probably, pretty hungover on a daily basis. He just drinks all day. He's carrying his recycling bin towards the curb, full of various liquor and beer bottles. Russ. Hey, Coach. Coach Daniels lowers his hood. I'm just going to call him Coach so I don't have to spread out his name like that. Coach Daniels will be known as Coach from now on. Coach lowers his hood, not very eager for a morning conversation. Coach. Oh, hey there, Russ. How's Zeke doing? Russ places the minivan in park. Russ. Oh, Zeke's just great. Big tournament starts tomorrow. Coach. I can't believe it's already Thanksgiving. Russ. You hear from Tracy at all? Coach stares towards his feet. Coach. Nah. Last I heard, she went back to Kalamazoo to stay with her sister. Probably for the best. I don't think we'll ever be able, since Willie and all. They share some awkward silence as Coach places the bin on the curb. Coach, have a safe trip. Tell the boys I said good luck. Russ notices all the bottles in the recycling bin, all the alcoholic bottles, all the whiskey bottles, whatever, as he walks away. Russ, hey, why don't you come along? Plenty of room. Wasn't this always your favorite tournament? Coach, thanks, really, but I got some work to catch up on around here. Russ, Come on, Coach. We both know that's not true. Coach pauses, his back facing Russ, who leans his head out the front window now. Russ. Change of scenery might do you some good. Plus, this could be the Rebels' last hurrah. What do you say? Coach ponders to himself as the morning sun shines down on his face and Russ begins to drive off. Russ, just think about it, Coach. All right, so Russ is just trying to be a good friend here. He knows Coach is drinking himself to death at this point. His wife left him and he's all alone in this house. And he's just trying to be his friend right here. Like, hey, why don't you come to the tournament with us? Now we're moving to a liquor store later that day as Coach is approaching the register with 2 bottles of Seagram 7 whiskey. I just had the number 7 in my brain as a symbol, so it would work as a symbolic element. He's drinking Seagram 7. The cashier, 40s, bearded, is wearing a West German soccer jersey, staring towards a TV behind him, which plays the 1990 World Cup final. As the West German team celebrates their victory, cashier has a German accent, and he's speaking in German. Weird nie alt. I'm not going to try to speak German. It means never gets old. Coach Daniels gazes up towards the soccer game, then tries to get his attention. Coach Daniels, you think you could ring me up? The cashier wipes a tear from his eyes and turns around. So he's watching the soccer game, like all distracted, getting emotional. They really did win. I looked that up in 1990. It was the West German team. The cashier saying, oh, sorry. So the cashier rings him up, bags the whiskey, then hands Coach his change. Cashier, my brother just sent this tape to me. I can't get enough of it. The cashier grabs a remote and rewinds the video as Coach Daniels nods in thanks, grabs his bag and walks away. Cashier, it's a beautiful game. Coach turns, watches the TV for a few seconds, then walks out. So he's just maybe getting some second thoughts. Maybe he's starting to say, yeah, I did love coaching that team. He happens to see this soccer game on TV just by chance, because I needed to put something in this story to kind of convince him to go on this trip, and that was one of the things I put in there. All right, now we're at Coach Daniels in his backyard. A little bit later that day, he's just sitting on an old beach chair and he's swigging his flask, getting drunk, facing his very unkempt lawn. So yeah, he's got no motivation to do anything. He's just drinking every day. And as he's staring out towards his backyard, we get a flashback here of Coach Daniels in the same backyard, but he's a bit younger. So he's remembering this moment. He's a bit younger, a much more cheerier disposition, and he's passing a soccer ball to Zeke, who's passing it to Willie. Coach, pass it back now, Willie. Willie passes him the ball. Coach, all right, who thinks they can score on me? Zeke, me, let me shoot. Willie, this is too easy, Dad. I score on you like every time. Coach, oh, someone's getting cocky now, huh? Willie, not cocky, just confident. Coach, okay, well, let's see if you can handle the pressure then, Mr. Confident. Willie sets up the ball as Coach stands in front of the net, trying to psych him out, doing like a Philly fanatic thing. And they playfully stare each other down. Then Willie runs up to strike the ball, and that's how we end this flashback. Back to reality, Coach is still Coach is snapping out of his daze, sitting on the chairs, wiping a tear from his eye, drinking his flask, as a black bat flies down like a missile right into his face in the daytime, which is pretty weird. He swats at the bat with the flask, sending it flying away. He puts the flask in his pocket, walks onto his lawn, retrieves a soccer ball out of a high patch, and then dribbles it impressively from his feet, thigh, chest, and up to his head. Coach, quietly to himself, who says alcohol impairs your motor skills? He dribbles the ball again, but then clumsily slips on the grass and falls hard onto his back, groaning in pain, then gazes up towards the sun shining down on him through the clouds. All right, so we had a moment with the coach there, remembering a memory, recalling a memory from years back of Zeke and Willie, his son Willie, shooting a penalty kick. He's now that's on his head because of Russ. Russ came by and invited him to go to the soccer tournament, and now he's kind of he's debating whether he should go or not. He's having some of these weird memories pop up. Plus, he saw the soccer game in the liquor store. All right. Now we're inside a Catholic school classroom that same day as a nun in her 50s is writing onto a blackboard as we notice other phrases written in chalk. The 7 deadly sins, the 7 wonders of the world, the 7 dwarves, the 7 seals of the apocalypse. She finishes writing the 7 days of creation, then places the chalk down. None. As you can see, the number 7 is a very popular number. To this very day, it's still considered a symbol of spiritual perfection, not just in Catholicism, but in many different cultures around the world. She's now writing an equation onto the blackboard. 72 plus x equals 79. None. Now, when we start to speak about algebraic equations like the one here, we begin to recognize just how important numerology is in both religion and mathematics. Mac is gripping tightly onto his pencil from his desk, staring towards the clock, which reads about a minute to 3 p.m. None. I'm going to change that to like 1 p.m. instead of 3 p.m. A minute to 1 p.m. The nun continues. Mathematics is in fact one of the most beautiful ways to interact with the spirits around us. Max, Zeke, Jordan, and Timmy, they're also staring at the clock above her, ready to move. None. And for the spirits to interact with us. Mac, under his breath. Oh, come on, enough with this bullshit already. The nun walks to his desk and stands in front of him, clutching her rosary beads. None. What was that, Mac? Did I hear you say something about bullshit? The clock hits 1 p.m. as Mac, Zeke, Jordan, and Timmy place their books in their desks, sprint to the back closet, grab their book bags, and run towards the door. And they're all saying and stuff at the same time. Bye, sister. Have a good weekend. You all have fun in bullshit land. The other students giggle and pack their books away and watch them run to the door as the nun chases after Mac, swinging her rosary beads towards him like a weapon, grazing his backside playfully. The nun's just having some fun with these kids. Nun. Have fun at your little tournament, boys, and don't go looking for trouble. You hear me? It doesn't matter. You could keep it 3 o'clock. I was remembering myself as a child. We would leave school early and go to this soccer tournament, but it doesn't matter. As soon as school's over, they're just sprinting out the door because they're so excited to go to this soccer tournament. So you could keep it at 3 o'clock. It doesn't matter. All right, school parking lot. Moments later, Timmy and Mac excitedly get in the back seat of a very beat up station wagon from the 1980s, like the ones with the wooden paneling. while Jordan gets in the back seat of a fancy luxury car and a few other students run to their parents' vehicles. Timmy is talking to Mac. You sure we're going to make it in this thing? Mac, have some faith. Zeke opens a minivan sliding door nearby. Zeke, see you guys when we get. He turns his attention towards Coach Daniels seated in the back with his sunglasses on, sipping a cup of coffee. There. So, see you guys when we get there. So he's surprised to see the coach in the back seat. Coach Daniels, hey Zeke, long time. Zeke shuts the sliding door and sits next to him. He's kind of confused. Zeke, hey coach. Coach, you ready for the tournament? Zeke, you know it. Coach fumbles his coffee and spills some onto his clothes. Coach, shit. He wipes the coffee off with his hands, licking his fingers. As Russ gazes back towards Zeke from the driver's seat, Russ, Coach decided to give me a hand. Liz sits in the passenger seat eating an apple. As she takes out a map of Pennsylvania and unfolds it, Liz, they changed it up this year. You boys ever heard of 7th Mountain? Coach Daniel sips his coffee. Coach, nah, it doesn't ring any bells. Russ starts the ignition. Russ, yeah, they changed it kind of last minute too. Liz, I think it'll be good for the boys. Expose them to that authentic country lifestyle. Alright, so this is just a scene. They're preparing to go on this trip. Maybe it's like a 3 to 4 hour trip from wherever they are to get to this weird town in Pennsylvania called 7th Mountain, which is based on Centralia, if you want to go down and learn more about that to get a better understanding of what I'm going for. So Timmy and Mac are in the beat up station wagon with Mac's dad driving. We'll meet him later. He's probably my favorite character in this. And then we got Russ driving the minivan with Liz next to him, and Coach decided to come along. Zeke's just surprised to see him. Zeke probably hasn't seen him in like 2 years. He's just been living as a drunk hermit in his house, and that's the only reason I would think Zeke would see him and be like having memories of Willie again. So he's kind of confused of how to act. All right, now we're drifting above the school parking lot as the minivan drives away, followed by the station wagon, and inside Liz is saying, yeah, maybe it'll even teach them some survival skills. So that was the end of her line. I think it'll be good for the boys. Expose them to the authentic country lifestyle. Maybe even teach them some survival skills. Maybe some foreshadowing there. Dun dun dun. As the minivan is driving now later that day on some highway, I would recommend playing Learning to Fly by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. It's a good road trip song. As you're setting this establishment shot, they're leaving this Catholic school, this place of order and structure and discipline and all this weird folklore. But now you're going to the country, to this weird location that we'll learn more about later. So I think it's a good song to put here. Russ is driving through this lush country highway. The colors of autumn in full display as he passes mountains, hills, farmland, and fruit stands on the side of the road. Russ, you were right, Liz. It's good to get out to the country every now and then. Liz, yeah, we should do it all more often. She turns back towards Coach Daniels. Liz, what was it, 89, Coach, when we took the kids tubing down the Delaware? She giggles, replaying a memory in her head. Liz, Willie wiped out going through some rapids and swore he would never step foot in any body of water again. I'll never forget that face he made. Coach forces a smile and sips his coffee. Liz. Sorry, I shouldn't have brought that up. Coach. Nah, it's fine, Liz, really. It's good to remember those good old days. She turns her head back towards the road while he takes out his flask and sneakily pours whiskey into his coffee. He then places his finger over his mouth as instruction for Zeke to keep it a secret, and then passes it to him for a taste. Zeke tastes the coffee with whiskey inside and says, "Ew, gross, Coach." Coach laughs and takes the flask back. Coach, why don't you catch me up, Zeke? We got a shot to win this thing this year? Zeke, well, we only had 2 losses all season, and one was because some idiot ref gave Mac a red card for pulling this asshole kid's shorts down during the game. Coach, I guess things haven't changed too much. Russ eyes him through the rear view. Russ. Yeah, boys have had a really great season, Coach. I'm sure they'll all be glad to see you. Coach leans forward and pats Russ on the shoulder. Coach, sounds like you've done a really great job with them, Russ. I think I'll just keep a low profile and watch from the shadows. Russ, whatever you want. Just glad to have you with us. Zeke to Coach Daniels. I heard the teams are a lot tougher this year, so we'll need some luck on our side. Coach, you can't rely on luck in life. He leans back, yawns, and starts to doze off. Coach, you can't really rely on anything except for the slow demise to the many layers of sulfuric hell waiting for us below. Zeke secures his coffee in the cup holder, then stares out the window towards the beautiful scenery. So Coach is just having a bit of an existential crisis with his 10-year-old kid. Well, Zeke, you can't rely on luck in life. Don't you know that, kid? You can't rely on anything, really, except for the slow demise to the many layers of sulfuric hell waiting for us below. And then he just dozes off all drunk. So he's still a mess, but, he's trying to at least... Something motivated him to tell Russ he would go to the soccer tournament. Something pushed him there. Maybe that memory of his son. Maybe everything combined. He's like, I really need to go out and get a change of scenery or I'm going to drink myself to death. Maybe he's having second thoughts about it. It's like a cry for help. I don't know. You could put any of those motivations there and it makes sense. You lose your kid in a tragic way, it's going to affect you for the rest of your life. All right. We're doing another vision here as Zeke was looking out the window towards this beautiful scenery, and now it's nighttime in his vision. Zeke is kind of a seer almost. He's seeing these weird visions, and we're drifting through this dark, gloomy sky towards this mountain on fire, like it's in the depths of hell. A cave entrance appears through the dark smoke, with a giant eyeball painted in blood and a flame instead of a pupil, while hundreds of black bats fly out of this cave and blacken the entire sky. In the minivan, Russ is driving through a narrow dirt road. This is still a part of this vision here. Wildfires raging on all sides. As Liz gently places her hand on his hand, Russ and Liz are speaking at the same time in this creepy way. If I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Zeke gazes out the back window as the smoke morphs into 7 demonic faces, as Russ and Liz calmly turn towards him, as the minivan is now speeding towards the edge of a cliff. Russ and Liz continue. Now I lay me down to sleep. That's the end of Zeke's vision. So he's having these weird type of dreams and visions now about this mountain on fire and this weird giant eyeball near a cave entrance with all these bats blackening out the sky, and now he's in this minivan with his parents, and they're all like creepy, saying this prayer to him, and they're about to speed off a cliff. And then he wakes up from this daydream, blinking his eyes, staring out towards a sign that says 7th Mountain, 77 miles. So they're getting closer. As Coach is resting his head against his shoulder and snoring. All right. Somebody said I should get rid of these scenes of the drive to 7th Mountain, but I kind of like them. I would fight that. I think these scenes are necessary. We build Coach's character more. We see some of these creepy moments through Zeke's vision, because we're not going to get into the horror stuff until maybe 20 pages from now. So I had to put stuff in between to keep people's attention, specifically horror fans, that they want to see some creepy shit right away. And yeah, you have a death scene in the beginning. That kind of sets up the flavor of the story. When a young kid tragically dies like that, it's going to affect everyone on that soccer team and his dad, the coach, and it's going to rip up the entire community when you have a tragedy like that. And yeah, maybe even Coach feels guilty. I didn't think about that. He could have taken his kid home that day, but he's like, yeah, you kids can keep playing, because that's what a normal parent would do. You're not going to think the worst in that situation, that your kid will die later that night speeding off a cliff in his bicycle, because that's what they think happened. They don't know that these creepy men were following him. All right. We're inside Jordan's family car. We haven't seen his car yet, but he's in the back seat of this spotless luxury car. Or maybe it was in the parking lot too. We just didn't. I mentioned the station wagon with Mac and Timmy and the minivan, but Jordan's car is like this very luxurious vehicle. And he's in the back seat listening to his headphones. We kind of hear En Vogue, My Lovin', You're Never Gonna Get It on his Walkman. He's into like R&B shit. First he was listening to Color Me Bad. Now he's listening to En Vogue from the early 90s. Jordan's father, Kurt, in his 40s, he's kind of an anxious, nervous guy. He's driving through the country highway, adjusting the rear view every few seconds, while his wife, Ruth, who's in her 40s, she's kind of the alpha, and she's napping in the passenger seat. Honks are sounding loudly from his left as Jordan's father, Kurt gazes over and spots Mac's family's old station wagon driving by. Kurt, what the hell? Mac's father, Al, also in his 40s, overweight, fun-loving, is honking some more as he hoots loudly out the window, while Kurt waves back apprehensively, more concerned with keeping both hands on the steering wheel. In the back seat of the station wagon, Timmy and Mac lift up their shirts and make funny faces towards Jordan, who shakes his head and bops his head to the music. And he's thinking quietly to himself, what a bunch of freaks. Al swerves dangerously closer to Kurt's car, then lifts his shirt up and shakes his man boobs towards him, where Rebels is written in red paint. Al, let's go Rebels. So he's yelling at the car as he's driving kind of erratically, this old rundown station wagon. Kurt forces a smile as Al speeds away, then grabs a granola bar from his pocket. All right, Kurt is the one grabbing that. Sorry, that sounds weird. Kurt is trying to force a smile, like, yeah, good job, Al. And then Al speeds away, and then Kurt is grabbing a granola bar. He gets a paper cut on his finger from the wrapper, then eyes Ruth, who is sleeping soundly next to him. Kurt, honey, can you grab me a Band-Aid from the first aid kit? She doesn't budge. Kurt is kind of soft-spoken. Ruth? Frustrated, Ruth wakes up, opens her eyes, turns towards him. Ruth, okay, Kurt, hold up a second. She opens the glove compartment, grabs a Band-Aid out of the large first aid kit. Ruth, here. Kurt, can you bandage me? Ruth, Jesus, Kurt, you're barely even bleeding. Kurt, I don't want to get blood on the steering wheel. She places the Band-Aid onto his cut, then tosses the first aid kit back inside the glove compartment, and then tries to resume her nap. Kurt, after a few moments, he looks at her again and says, honey? Ruth, what, Kurt? Kurt, can you please make sure everything is accounted for in the first aid kit? Ruth, what? Kurt, just to be safe. She sighs and grabs the first aid kit, pulls out a small flashlight, then some gauze, then Band-Aids, eye wash, burn cream, and other medical items. Then she tosses each item back inside the glove compartment. She's kind of mocking him here as she says, Everything checked and accounted for, Captain. Happy now? She jams the first aid kit box inside and slams the door shut. Then she tries to go back to sleep. As Kurt stares towards the road, then towards the glove compartment, then towards the road, then towards the glove compartment, and then he finally says, Kurt, honey, you think you can place everything neatly back inside the kit, though? She rummages through the glove compartment quickly, and then eventually places everything back inside the kit, then violently slams the glove compartment shut. Kurt, I'm sorry, but OCD is genetic. It's not my fault. Ruth, we better find Jordan a good therapist now then. Alright, just to build their characters a little. Kurt and Ruth, you can see these scenes will pop up later. They're not major characters, but I think this scene is kind of important to kind of show their relationship. Ruth is the one that kind of wears the pants in this type of marriage. And now we are on the side of a highway a little bit later. Mac and Timmy are leaning against the old station wagon as Al lifts up the hood, then coughs through the thick black smoke. If you really want to get weird, you can maybe make the black smoke look like the ones from the type of a feeling atmosphere that was in Zeke's dream, the black smoke from the fire on the mountain forming all these vampire faces. And then we realize it's just the black smoke from Al's crappy car. And Al saying through the smoke, "It's okay, boys, just the damn radiator, I think." He waves the smoke away. Al, just need to let her rest for a bit. Be on our way in no time. Now he's talking to the station wagon. Isn't that right, baby? Now he's gently banging on the side, causing the door handle on the passenger side door to fall off. He bends down and picks the handle up off the highway, just as a gang of 7 bikers speed by him. Each biker is wearing a leather jacket with the words, A. Salor Kazuti. I don't know how to say that, but it's in Romanian, and it translates to "of the fallen." So there you go. Now we see these bikers speeding by, similar to the ones that we saw in that first tragic scene that were chasing Willie through the woods. So Al kind of watches them zip by, and he tosses the broken door handle back inside the passenger side door, and he's talking to himself. We'll just take care of that later. And Timmy is eyeing Mac nearby. Timmy, and he's doing the pee-pee dance. Mac, I gotta pee. Mac, what are you looking at me for? Go damn pee then. I guess that makes sense. Timmy, where? Mac, anywhere. Pick a damn tree and mark your territory. Timmy holds his crotch while doing more of the pee-pee dance. Timmy, I really gotta go, Mac. Mac sighs and then leads him into the woods. Mac, all right, follow me. Watch out for poison ivy. Timmy scans the woods anxiously. Timmy, what's that look like? Mac, Jesus, kid. Aren't you in the damn Boy Scouts? Moments later, deeper in the woods, Mac is leaning against a tree, picking his nose, as Timmy is urinating nearby in the bushes. Mac, what happened to your parents this time? Timmy zips up and walks carefully through the bushes. Timmy, they already had a trip booked to the Bahamas. He stares down at the bushes nervously. Timmy, wait, is that poison ivy? Mac sighs again, then puts his arm around him. Mac, come on, tough guy, let's get back to the shit wagon. They approach a large smoking crevice on the rocky ground and cover their noses with their shirts. Timmy, man, what is that crap? As they gaze down through the smoke, the grass around Timmy collapses as he grips onto the sinking terrain, trying not to fall below. Timmy, Mac. Mac dives down and reaches his hand as far as he can extend. Mac, here, grab on. Timmy freezes in terror. Timmy, I can't reach. Mac, trust me. Timmy, I can't, Mac. Mac, just grab onto my damn hand, Timmy. Timmy reaches out and Mac pulls him to safety just as the rest of the terrain collapses around them. They both crawl away in a panic, then stare back towards the smoking sinkhole as loud, demonic howls echo from below. So that's why I think these are necessary. We're on page 25, 50, 60 pages to go here. 60 pages to go, and there's not a lot of action until, in terms of a horror film, there's not a lot of fear-based stuff until way later, towards the end, the last 15 pages or so. So I had to put stuff in there to kind of set the mood here. So I would combat that these scenes are necessary. They're building these kids' characters and their personalities. We're learning about Al. Al's like my favorite character, like I said. He was a lot of fun to write. I really love his character. He's just kind of the laid-back dad in this. I don't know. He was just a fun type of eccentric brain. I don't know, man. You'll get what I'm talking about later in the story. But I wanted to put stuff in there because that's Centralia, all these smoking crevices. And there's like YouTube videos. What if these are really portals to hell? Or you could look at the Mariana Trench and kind of the weird folklore mythology around that. What's really living at the depths of the Mariana Trench? So I had to put something in here, is what I'm trying to say, which is why I think those scenes are necessary. If you take these scenes out, they leave the Catholic school. The next scene is in the town as they're checking into the hotel. I don't think it would work as well. The pacing of a horror film like this is important as we learn about the new environment. They're leaving the safety of their suburban community and they're driving 4 or 5 hours into the mysterious country of Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania can become like a creepy place. There's so much of that state that is not Pittsburgh, is not Harrisburg, is not Philadelphia. If you go into the country areas, it's very remote. And I'm sure there's all kinds of weird folklore stuff when you get into the country. things just become creepier naturally because you're almost getting away from the safety of civilization. So that's like my legal argument of why to keep all these scenes in there. And next we're going to move to a gas station, maybe a little bit later in the daytime, as Russ drives the minivan into an isolated rural station with, those old fuel pumps from the 1960s. And around him are all these abandoned shacks and rusted farm tractors. So it's a town, but very, very much a ghost town, wherever this is in Pennsylvania. And Russ is saying to Liz, "I'll be right back." And now he looks to the back seat and he says, "You guys need anything?" The coach is still sleeping, and Zeke puts down his Batman comic book. Zeke, "I think we're all good back here, Dad." Russ nods and walks away towards the wooden shack to find an attendant. He gazes through the front window towards broken glass and rotted wood, debris all over the floor. Russ, "Hello, anyone? Just need some gas." He walks around to the side of the station towards an old, battered barn where he spots 3 Harley motorcycles parked nearby. And he peeks his head inside this barn. Inside the barn, these 3 intimidating, bearded, tatted up bikers, Biker 1, Biker 2, and Biker 3, they're mixing a black liquid in this large vat. They're all wearing the same leather jackets as the bikers from the highway, with the logo of bat wings on fire on the back, and the words, "E Solor Kazuti." Outside the barn, moments later, we still watch Russ as he's watching these bikers inside. A shadowy figure slowly approaches him from behind and reaches out his muscular, tattooed arms. As he approaches and grabs him, Russ jumps back in fright and falls backwards into the dirt. And then he stares up towards a massive biker named Grigor. Grigor, who would put the fear of God into any living being. Cigar smoking from his mouth. Grigor, or Grigor, I don't know how to say his name now. Grigor. He's got like an Eastern European accent. "That's your van out there." Russ finally regains his breathing and rises to his feet. Russ, "Sorry, was only looking to get some gas." Grigor, "Only cash." Russ, "Oh, that's fine." Grigor, "You come now." Grigor picks him off the ground and leads him towards the fuel pump. Moments later, we're back at the gas station. Russ is back inside the minivan driver's seat, gazing nervously towards Grigor as he puffs his cigar and fuels up the van, while Zeke stares out the back window at tattoos on the back of his neck of bat wings on fire and one eyeball with a flame in place of the pupil, kind of like the same as the symbols that were in his vision. Grigor finishes the fueling and walks towards the driver's side window, staring directly towards Zeke, who places his comic book over his face to avoid eye contact. Now Grigor is sticking his head inside the driver's side window, winking at Liz, then staring towards Russ, who anxiously hands him a $20 bill. Russ, "Thanks very much." Grigor reaches into his pocket for change as Russ says nervously, "Oh, it's fine. Keep it." He starts up the minivan, rolls up the window, and speeds away as Grigor watches and puffs his cigar. So, yeah, he's an important character in this. What do I picture? I didn't mention him before, but that, is it Danny Trejo? He's one of my favorite actors. I think he was in Dusk Till Dawn. Is that his name? Yeah, Danny Trejo. I know he looks like a really tough dude. Wow, he's 81 years old, but he doesn't look like that. But he's a badass dude. That's kind of what I picture, like that type of as Grigor. You want this really intimidating dude. And I don't want to give it away, but I know you look at Danny Trejo, he looks like some kind of a mythical beast or something. I'm sure he's the nicest guy in the world, but I think he went to jail. I heard this story on like the Steve-O podcast. Danny Trejo went to jail in his youth and became a boxer. And he was like the toughest boxer in jail. And then some weird coincidence or synchronicity, he was able to be some production company liked him or liked his face or liked his spirit, and they hired him to be a part of some film production. And he wasn't even trying to, I don't think. But they just thought, all right, this guy's the real deal tough guy. Let's get this motherfucker. So that's how his career started like that. In my script, Seeds of Anarchy, the character of Ramon, I kind of picture Danny Trejo playing that family shaman or somebody that kind of looks like that with the stoic face like that. And yeah, he would he's the type of actor that I would, something related to him in that role would be really cool. I know he's up there in age, 81, but he probably doesn't look like that. He'd probably be a better actor for like Seeds of Anarchy to play Ramon. He could pull that off. I don't know if he could play a Romanian guy. I don't know. But that's what you should be picturing. Someone that's so intimidating looking like that. And the character of Grigor. And let's continue. We're on the side of the highway. Back with Mac and Timmy and Al. Mac and Timmy are running out of the woods towards the station wagon. They're all covered in grass and dirt now because they had to crawl away from the sinkhole. And they're both still huffing and puffing. Timmy, thanks for saving me back there. Mac, I always got your back, man. You should know that by now. Rebels stick together. Timmy, what do you think that was anyway? Mac, I don't know. Maybe the Dragar coming back to feast on the living would have definitely turned you by now if they grabbed you, made you a part of their undead army. Timmy, you're crazy, Mac. There's something called the Dragar, Draugr. I'm probably not even saying it right. My pronunciation of it. I think it's some Viking myth of the undead army or some shit. And that's I just thought it was an interesting thing to put there. The two boys now walk up to the station wagon as Al is keying the ignition with no success. And he's seductively talking to the car, saying, "Come on, sugar, come on, sugar." He sweetly kisses the dashboard while flicking the dice hanging from the rear view. Al, we've been through so much together. He now keys the ignition again, and the engine finally starts. Al, I knew you still loved me. He motions towards Mac and Timmy in the back. Al, hey boys, shut the hood and we'll be on our merry way. So, no, they're not in the car yet. They're still outside. Mac is lowering the hood of the station wagon, locking it in place. And then he and Timmy get in the back, covered in dirt and grass, as Al turns to face them and sniffs the air. Al, the hell happened to you two? After no response, he turns his attention back to the highway, checks for oncoming traffic, and drives away. Mac. This is maybe moments later as he gets back to driving. This is Mac talking to Al. Dad, do you believe in hell and demons and, all that creepy shit? Al squints at him. Excuse me. Al is now squinting at him curiously through the rear view. Al, isn't that something you should ask those priests or nuns at your school? Or a witch doctor? Mac, come on, I'm serious here. Al, all right, calm down. I can't really say too much, but I did see someone morph into a wolf once when I was about your age. Mac and Timmy stare towards him intently as he drives. So they're like, it's almost like Al's telling them a ghost story here, and they're like on his every word after what they just experienced in the woods. That's why Mac is asking him this. And Al continues, one night I was walking towards the school gymnasium when right there in the open, under the full moon, on the side of the building, an older kid transformed into a gigantic wolf, howling like the loudest roar of thunder you could ever imagine. Now he's howling loudly, then moves the rear view to view the boys hanging on his every word. Al, later that night, just as I thought I'd seen it all, he went on to score 43 points in the championship basketball game, hitting 7 of 10 from beyond the arc, and ending the game with a flashy reverse slam dunk. At this point, Mac is sighing to himself. Mac, Dad, that's from that stupid Teen Wolf movie. Al, hey, Teen Wolf is not a stupid movie. I will not allow such blasphemy in my presence. He grabs a half-eaten candy bar from the floor and chews on it. Now Al with his mouth full. It's one of the best sports/horror/coming-of-age movies of all time. Now he snaps open a soda can and drinks. Al, it's like symbolic or something about puberty and all that shit. Now he's laughing to himself as he continues. Al, those nuns teach you boys about puberty yet? Timmy laughs and snorts, while Mac covers his face in embarrassment. Mac, Dad, please just stop talking. Now Al is driving farther, sipping his soda and laughing to himself, as Timmy lunges forward and eyes him. Timmy, Sister Charlotte did tell us to make sure we don't pop any boners. At that point, Al spits some of the soda onto the windshield and laughs more to himself. Al, maybe you should both stay away from that one. Now he's wiping the soda from the windshield with his sleeve, and he's driving farther down the highway. Yeah, it's kind of a funny scene. They're just having a weird talk about metaphysical shit, and it just becomes a comic relief thing. I had a nun in grade school who would say that, don't be popping any boners. Maybe a couple times. Not like, it wasn't like her catchphrase, but there was a couple times she would say something like that. I don't even know if she knew what it meant. I don't think I knew what a boner was when I was like that age. I don't even think I knew what a boner was. But yeah, this one nun would say, like, don't be popping any boners. Which, like, now looking back, it's like the funniest thing of all time. Just picturing a nun giving advice to like, I don't know, 10-year-old boys. Hey, boys, don't be popping any boners now. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like I had to put that in there because it's such a funny thing to think about. So, don't be popping any boners, children. Alright, now we finally make it to the 7th Mountain Motel. It's still the daytime, but the sun is starting to set as Russ is driving the minivan through a complete ghost town, gazing towards abandoned buildings and wooden shacks. Not one soul in sight. He pulls into the motel parking lot with a rusted sign out front with some letters missing as Liz appears disappointed. Excuse me. Liz. Not quite what I expected. Zeke, Liz, and Coach Daniels exit the minivan, stare towards the motel, which has definitely seen better days, as Russ steps out to join them. Russ. Well, might as well get situated. They walk towards the lobby entrance. I'll just say now, the reason the soccer tournament isn't in this town, since it's barely a town, it's a ghost town, it's probably the town over, and they just wanted to find a cheaper place to stay or something like that. So they found this motel nearby that was still surviving in this ghost town. And they're like, yeah, let's stay here. It'll be good for the boys to get, to be out in the country like that. All the other people are staying at some fancy, I don't know, Westin or Holiday Inn. And they decided to just pick this motel. No other reason. I had to think of something to justify that, because there's nobody else staying here besides these 5 kids or whatever it is. All the rest of the soccer teams would be in other places, in fancy hotels or more established places near the soccer tournament. But they decided to take a chance on this weird, spooky motel in the middle of this ghost town. It would be like if tourists went to Centralia thinking it was some, I don't know, I can't really make that comparison. If you didn't know what Centralia was, and you just ended up going there, and then that's a good horror story like that. You just have to experience all the weird, creepy shit in a town like that. And that's where I'm going with this story now. All right, let's go maybe 10 more pages or so. Now we're inside the lobby of this motel, the 7th Mountain Motel. Zeke and Coach Daniels are checking out some dusty tourist pamphlets on a shelf with graphics from the 1970s. So very old shit here. Everything looks like from that time period. It hasn't been remodeled since the early 70s in 20 years. Some of them say, explore the Pennsylvania canyons and 7th Mountain hayrides. Russ rings the bell at the front counter, and he waits a few moments. Then he rings it again, while Liz explores the small, dirty room. Liz, maybe this is the wrong place. Just then, the owner, Jack, who's in his 70s, not many teeth left, bugs all over his beard, dead and alive. Like he's just got dead bugs like all over his beard. Probably hasn't taken a shower in like 2 years. And he's walking towards them from the back room, smiling wide. Jack. Well, howdy there, travelers. I'm thinking of Will Ferrell in Saturday Night Live when he plays the old prospector. Well, howdy there, travelers. But he's not going to talk like that. He's just, well, howdy there, travelers. Liz, hi, we're just checking in, I think. Jack is checking the calendar on his desk, where a large poster of the Orion's Belt constellation hangs nearby. Jack, right, you must be one of the families here, or you must be that family here for that Thanksgiving tournament. So, yeah, there's nobody else staying at this motel. So I gotta change that dialogue. You must be that family here for that Thanksgiving tournament. Russ. You got it. Russ grabs the 2 room keys that Jack hands to him. Jack, hey, you came at a good time, right before the weather gets too frigid and the chill burrows deep into your bones. Jack is running his hand through his beard, flinging some bugs onto the counter. Jack, it's the best time of year, honest to God. We used to have a Thanksgiving parade right through this street back in the day. Liz, yeah, I didn't see a lot of people around town driving in. He stares down towards the floor. He's kind of despondent as he continues, Jack. Town kind of hit that proverbial rough patch some years back. You know how it goes. So-called progress. Young ones don't want to stay tied down to their roots anymore. He walks towards the front window and gazes towards the ghost town, Jack. Plus, that whole mine explosion didn't help. Some parts underground have been on fire to this very day. 70-some years of constant burning. Can you believe that? He scratches his beard and walks back behind the counter. Jack. It's welcome to get some nice family units back around here, though. Usually just get some drifters or weirdo kids searching for ghosts. He coughs out a disgusting wad of tobacco towards a can on the floor. Jack. I think it's kind of funny just to have these cans like all over the room. So as he's walking, he can just spit. He sets them up everywhere along the wall just so he can spit in any of them. They probably haven't been emptied out in like 20 years. So he's coughing this disgusting wad of tobacco out onto this can on the floor. And he's saying, this is Jack continuing. Sometimes I think those kids may be onto something. They share some awkward silence, and then Russ starts the conversation. Well, okay then, thank you very much. And then Jack says his name, Jack. Russ and Jack shake hands. Then Russ and Liz walk towards the front door, followed by Zeke and Coach. Jack. We do got a working bar on the other side. Mostly bikers, but what do you call that when you sing other people's songs? Liz. Karaoke? Jack. Karaoke, that's it. We do have one of those sing-song machines. All in good fun. Now he's eyeing Zeke. Jack. And good luck in that tournament, son. Cherish your days of youth. You never know what the stars will bring. Coach Daniels watches the others walk out, then eyes him. Coach, where's that bar again? So he waits for everyone else to leave. He steps back in and says to Jack, where's that bar again? And Jack says, just keep walking around to the right, sir. You can't miss it. And Coach nods and thanks and walks out. So now we're really setting this up here. We saw Jack, a figure that you would not find in cities. Like, he's probably been living by himself in his motel, trying to survive with like next to no business, as he's one of the last remaining people from this town after the mine fire. If you look at Centralia, it was like a real town with thousands of people. I don't know the exact population of the 50s or 40s, but it was a very successful town, a mining town, I guess, up until the mine explosion. Once that happened and they had the problems that the fire never could be put out underground, and I think the government came in and they were saying this is unsafe to live here. And a lot of people at that point just moved out and tried to find a different home. But I think there's still some people who stayed. It can't be many people. When I wrote this story 3-4 years ago, I was under the impression that one day I would go travel there and just check it out myself. It's still something I might do. I live in New Jersey. I could probably drive there or take a train, be there in like 4 or 5 hours. And it would be kind of cool to see that area. Maybe I could even film this there. I'm speaking like I'm a director, but maybe the people who scout the locations would find a place in Centralia or a place around there. Because from the videos I watched on YouTube, it is kind of a creepy looking place. Not trying to make it I'm not trying to shit on this small town, but they had a lot of bad luck. I know it's kind of, I feel bad even talking about it because people had to leave. They probably had generations that lived there, whoever founded this place, whenever it was. So it is kind of a sad story, but it's perfect for a horror movie, so I had to use it. And one day I'll have to go check it out. It's on the bucket list to have a ghost tour through Centralia. Because my whole thinking was, how do I turn that into a horror movie? You have an underground fire burning for 50, 60 years. And they can't put it out. It's just been burning underground constantly. And my thinking was what I said before. Because of this fire constantly burning, it's going to open up this portal to hell. I know it's stupid. Like, people think hell is underneath the ground. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But all these demons and crazy mythological creatures that are kind of buried in history, that's what I'm going for. That they're going to become a part of this story at some point. All right. Now we're outside the motel. It's still daytime, but the sun's about to set here, so it's like late evening. And we just saw the coach is asking Jack where the bar is. And now everyone's walking to their rooms. Russ, Liz, Zeke, and Coach are walking towards their rooms. Liz, maybe we should have just stayed with the rest of the team. Russ, I thought you wanted Zeke to experience that authentic rural way of life. Liz, yeah, but this seems more depressing than educational. Coach places his arm around Zeke. Coach, this town is what happens when modern industry digs its claws into small town America, thrusting stakes right through every ma and pa store's heart. Russ, you see, Liz, anything can be made educational. Thanks, Coach. So Coach is just having another Debbie Downer. First he's talking about there's no luck. Zeke, don't you know you can't rely on anything in life? Wah, wah. Now he's doing another Debbie Downer. Zeke, this town is what happens when modern industry digs its claws into small town America, thrusting stakes right through every ma and pa store's heart. And there's like a vampire connection there. Wah, wah, Debbie Downer. And Russ is saying, see, Liz, anything can be made educational. Thanks, Coach. Liz grabs the room key from him, opens the door, and walks in with Zeke, while Russ tosses a key to Coach for his room as he breathes in the country air. Russ, I told you this would be good for you. The two men enjoy the sunset together. Russ, Rebels are still your team, you know. Coach, not anymore. You kept the Rebels alive. The kids really needed that after Willie. Russ pats him on the back as they listen to the sounds of nature. Russ, get some rest. Wake up call at 6:30 sharp. Coach Daniels nods and keys his door just as Kurt drives into the lot, followed by Al, who honks his horn, sticks his head out the window, and hoots. Al, who's ready to kick some country-bred Pennsylvania ass? Woo! Go Rebels! He parks the station wagon as thick black smoke filters through the front hood. Al, God damn it, not again. So the car is about to blow up at this point. His shitty station wagon is about to blow up. He exits, opens the hood, and he coughs through the smoke, speaking to the station wagon. Al, I thought we moved past this. Russ and Coach share a smile. Russ, quietly to Coach. Get out now, while you still can. They dash into their rooms and slam the doors as Al fans the smoke away. Al, hey guys, a little help here. All right, and then you just cut it there. So those are all like friends and they're teammates, but they're probably like the close friends of the team on the team. Al and his kids, Timmy, Um, well, yeah, Russ, we already know him, and Coach, and then Jordan and his family. They all decided to stay at this crappy motel together to give the kids the real, authentic, rural experience or whatever. Whatever you can, that's a good enough story to justify this. I just needed to find a reason. Like, why are these people staying at this crappy motel in the middle of nowhere? Where's the rest of the team? So I had to make something up to make this story believable like that. All right. What are we on here? Page 34. I'll read a little bit more. We're going to start the soccer tournament now. When I wrote these soccer scenes, I was very inspired by Welcome to Wrexham. I mentioned that earlier because of the whole mine disaster in Wales in the town of Wrexham. And that's a big part of Wrexham's heritage. And that connects to this story, which I never really put together until later. But I thought that was a weird connection. And then I was really addicted to that show. The first season just gripped me and got me into Wrexham soccer, and I had to like buy a season pass to watch all the games. Like I was really into it. I'm not really paying attention to it anymore. But from time to time, I'll watch YouTube videos to see what they're up to. But anyway, the way they show the games on that show, they'll show a game on Welcome to Wrexham, and they'll just show the highlights and the important moments and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I copied that kind of a method as I showed the soccer games in this movie. Because now we're going to get into the soccer tournament when the soccer games are going on, and how do you film it? Is it like Ladybugs with is that the Rodney Dangerfield? Or what other soccer movies have been filmed? Like, I think of Little Giants. Little Giants is probably, even though that's football, like American football, Little Giants was a movie I watched as a kid, and I think it has like a wimpy kid in it, and that's like the Timmy character is kind of based on that. I want to say, isn't Al Bundy in that? Sorry, I forget his real name. Little Giants movie. And I don't think I've watched it in probably 20 years. But that was a pretty popular movie when it came out. Little Giants from 1994. This is like the Sandlot, kind of, the same type of, Ed O'Neill. Sorry, Al Bundy. I called him Al Bundy. I forgot his real name. Ed O'Neill. So Little Giants was a pretty big movie when I was a kid. I was like 12 at this point, or 13. I remember going to the theater to see it. It's kind of like The Sandlot. So these movies are a big part of this script as well. When we get into how you exactly film these short soccer games, you can't show that much. You just have to show some of the more exciting parts. So if you go back to movies like Little Giants, that's what I would probably kind of go back to and figure out how to make the film like that. So we're at a soccer field the next day as the Rebels in their red uniforms play against a team in green uniforms. Mac is winning a header and passing a long ball towards Jordan down the left sideline. Liz is watching the game with Coach from the bleachers, and he's wearing a hooded sweatshirt with the hood up over his head, trying to stay incognito. So he probably doesn't want to know. He doesn't want to let all the other parents know that he's even there. He just wants to watch the game and get drunk by himself. Liz is yelling now, "Good ball, Mac." Now she sits down and she's talking to Coach. "So, how's it feel to watch a game again, Coach?" Coach: "That's a little different, Liz, being a spectator. But the boys are really playing as a team out there." Ruth is sitting next to Kurt nearby, and he's standing up and watching through fancy binoculars, cleaning the lens every few seconds with a handkerchief. As Al stands up and lifts up his shirt to expose Rebels painted against his chest in red. Al, let's go, Rebels, take no prisoners. A tall player on the green team elbows Timmy in the face, purposely, as they both go up to play the ball in the air. So Timmy's going up for the ball. This Ophi kid is just elbowing him right in the face, like on purpose, playing dirty. Coach Daniels rises up in a fury and lowers his hood down from his head. He's getting back to coach mode now, like he's yelling at the ref. Coach, what the hell, ref? How's that not a red card? The ref, who's in his 40s, kind of a no-nonsense guy, stares him down as the game continues. As Timmy rolls over and blood is dripping from his nose. Coach, the damn Ophi kid nearly took his damn nose off. A player on the green team now takes a throw-in as the ref walks by Russ, seated on the Rebels team bench, writing notes in a pad. Russ has a reserved tone, like he's kind of the opposite of coach. Sir, he's talking to the ref. Sir, please remember, it's just a game. We don't want to see anyone getting hurt out there. The ref stares him down. Ref, you better watch it. I will toss you right out of this tournament if your side can't keep their damn mouths shut. So the ref is angry that the coach is yelling at him from the bleachers, Coach Daniels. Russ turns his attention back to his notebook. Russ, understood, sir. Understood. On the field, Zeke is passing the ball to Mac, who valiantly dribbles through two defenders and then passes the ball into the corner towards Timmy, who retrieves the ball, fakes out a defender, and sends a cross, a perfect pass towards Jordan, who sticks out his leg and deflects the ball in for a goal. The ref now blows the final whistle to end the game, and the Rebels celebrate their victory. Jordan, one game down, fellas. Timmy, nice deflection. Zeke, let's keep this going. Coach Daniels strolls the sideline excitedly. So now he's really into this now. Like he was the coach for so many years, and now he spent 2 years like kind of away from this, and he's getting those feelings again, the competitiveness and just the grit that comes with coaching a kids team. And he's trying to hold in his enthusiasm as he swigs on his flask of whiskey. Coach, way to be tough out there, Timmy. Great win, boys. So he's like in coach mode. It only took him a couple moments, and then he got right back into coach mode, like he never left. Now, on the field, the tall player who elbowed Timmy trips him from behind. So he's pissed off that his team lost, and he's tripping Timmy from behind, sending Timmy flying onto the ground, holding his ankle in pain. Mac rushes to his defense, pushing the tall player down, and stuffs grass into his mouth. And then he puts him in an awkward-looking headlock, straight out of the WWF. Mac, nobody messes with Timmy, except for me. Now a brawl breaks out between the two teams, as Jordan tries his best to keep the peace while keeping his hair neatly in place. Jordan, come on guys, watch the hair, watch the hair. The ref runs over, blows his whistle, and tosses kids off one another in a futile attempt to break up the tussle, while Coach Daniels watches in high spirits. Coach, that's right, Rebels always stick together, way to be, boys. Russ sits on the bench with his legs crossed, writing more notes, completely unaware of the comical fighting on the field. So Russ and Coach Daniels are completely opposites. I picture Russ like sitting on the bench with with his legs crossed, and he's just writing stuff in his notebook, kind of like not aware of anything that's happening on the field. And coach is on the sidelines with his hoodie and drinking his whiskey, and he's like, egging on the referee, and he's coaching like he's still the coach of the team. And because of the Wrexham angle, I pictured like Ryan Reynolds as Coach Daniels and Rob McElhenney as Russ. Since they already have a relationship, they could actually play off each other really well, because they do that on that show, and they seem to have a funny dynamic like that. So that's who I kind of picture in my head, the Ryan Reynolds type of character as Coach Daniels, and Rob McElhenney as Russ, the complete polar opposite. All right, we're at the bar later that day, the bar at the motel. There are dive bars, and then there are bars like this one that probably don't have plumbing. The main features include an old dartboard, a cheap karaoke machine on a small stage in one corner, and rotting wooden walls. Coach Daniels is at the bar, cleaning off the top of his dirty mug with his shirt sleeve, as Russ walks in and sits next to him. Russ: "Hey, Coach. Thought I'd find you here." He takes out his notebook. Russ: "I wanted to get your advice on some strategies for the next game." He stares down at the notes. Russ: "Now, we started the game with a 4-4-2 formation, and we seem to be doing fine. Towards the end, we changed to the more attacking 3-5-2, which is when we got that clutch winning goal from Jordan. I'm just not sure if we can sustain that aggression for a full half. You know what I mean, Coach?" Coach Daniels pays him little mind as he drinks his beer. Russ: "So, what do you think?" Coach: "Number one, you're the coach now, so stop calling me coach. Number two, don't worry about all that technical crap." Coach is now finishing his beer, eyeing the female bartender in her 40s. She's dressed like a biker, as she walks towards him and refills his mug from the tap. Coach: "That team has heart and they fight for each other. As a coach, that's all you really need." He pats Russ on the arm and drinks his beer. Coach: "You've done a great job, Russ. You should be proud." Russ: "Thanks, Coach." He catches himself too late. Russ: "Sorry, it's going to take me some time." So Coach is telling him, don't call me Coach anymore. But Russ is just so used to it. So he says, "Thanks, Coach." And then he realizes it. "Sorry, it's going to take me some time to adjust." Coach: "You want a celebratory beer?" Russ: "No, thanks." Coach: "When's the next game?" Russ: "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Teams are only going to get tougher from this point." Grigor and the three bikers from the barn now walk inside and sit at a back table, away from the sunlight, while Coach Daniel stares towards them curiously, as the bartender walks towards them with a tray of beers. Russ: "If we win the next one." Coach: "When we win the next one." Russ: "Right. We should be safe to stroll right into the next round. But I don't want to get the kids' hopes up too much yet." Coach: "High emotions will only get you into trouble. Smart to keep everything even keeled." Even keeled. Russ: "Speaking of, Liz said you really gave it good to the ref out there." Coach: "Yeah, sorry about that. Controlling my own emotions wasn't always one of my strengths." Russ rises. Russ: "You gonna be all right here by yourself?" Coach finishes his beer, then motions to the bartender for a refill as Russ walks away. Russ: I'll be in my room if you need me. Coach Daniels turns towards him as he opens the door. Coach, real good game today. Coach. Russ smiles and walks out. Another bonding moment here. Russ is just a good guy. He's trying to help Coach kind of get out of that darkness in his life. And even though he's still drinking himself, he's not going to be all preachy like, Coach, you have to stop drinking, Coach. Coach, stop drinking, will you? God damn it, put the beer down, Coach. Yeah, he's just trying to be his friend, supporting someone to support him here. He realizes Coach has been down for years now, and he's just kind of at the end of his rope almost. Yeah, he's just trying to do anything to bring him out of that darkness. So yeah, Russ is a likable dude, and Coach is too. They're both likable guys, just different circumstances led them to this point in their lives. All right, let's read a little bit more. We're in the woods now that night, and Timmy, Jordan, and Zeke are sitting on logs surrounded by the sounds of nature, gazing towards the bright stars above, while Mac passes Coach Daniels' flask to Zeke. Mac, check it out. I found this in Coach's room. Zeke passes it to Jordan. Zeke, I already tried it. It tastes like piss and vinegar. Mac, how would you know what piss tastes like? Jordan takes a swig from the flask and makes a gross face. Then he passes it to Timmy, who takes a swig and instantly spits it out. Timmy, yeah, it does taste like piss. Zeke, see, I told you. Jordan grabs the flask from Timmy and sniffs it. Jordan, how the hell does Coach drink this stuff every day? Mac grabs the flask from him and takes a long swig, trying to hide the whiskey burn. Mac, yeah, you guys will understand when you grow up. Jordan, I'm older than you. Zeke, so am I. Mac swigs the flask again. Mac, he's trying to show his dominance here as the alpha. You know what I mean. Once you get on my level of manliness and all. He places the flask into his pocket. Timmy, yeah, you weren't so manly running from that portal to hell with me. Embarrassed, Mac lunges towards Timmy. Mac, you would be a pile of ash by now if I didn't pull you out, you dinky dweeb. He pushes him down and punches him on the shoulder, forcing Zeke to separate them. Zeke, would you stop messing around? We need everyone in top shape tomorrow. Timmy rubs his aching shoulder while Mac calms down and stares towards the clear night sky. Mac, besides, all that hellfire stuff is bullshit land. Jordan, bullshit land. Mac lays on the grass, gazes towards Orion's belt constellation. Mac, you know, bullshit land, where people like to run to when they don't have the answers. When they don't have any answers. He tosses pebbles into the air. Mac, where did all this stuff come from? How could something exist with no beginning or end? He launches a rock as far as he can into the night. Mac, why do bad things happen to good people? Like Willie. He sits back down on a log as the mood now turns somber. Mac, bullshit land. A fine place to visit, but the more time you spend there, the more it will rub off on you. Zeke rises and tries to bring the mood back up. Zeke, all I know is Willie would want to win this tournament if he was here with us right now. He walks off alone into the darkness. Zeke, and that's all we should be focusing on. So Zeke's trying to play the leader here, the captain of this team of misfits, trying to keep them all focused on just winning the damn tournament as a tribute to Willie and whatever. I'm going to stop here. And it's a pretty good spot to stop. The tournament's going to continue as we come back for part two. And so far, I think it reads pretty well. It's not too confusing in any parts. It's another script like yesterday that doesn't have a lot of weird cuts or a lot of flashbacks or dream sequences. It's full steam ahead. Willie dies on page 5. We already have a tragedy. If this was a Stranger Things season and you would have to stretch this out to 8-10 episodes, you would probably wait till the end of the first episode to show Willie's death, or you would have a backstory with the people who were chasing him, invading this suburban town in the early 90s. Like, because I do go back to Stranger Things when I write these scenes. That's a very pivotal show for me, for a lot of people of my generation. I'm 44, born in 1981. So I was growing up with E.T., Edward Scissorhands, all the Tim Burton stuff. I grew up with Beetlejuice, and I love that shit. I didn't mention Tim Burton, but yeah, I love his type of art. He's a unique type of a director. Even the Wednesday show, I watched that. That was all right. It's kind of a teeny drama, but his directing is just worth watching. What else from the 80s? I said Little Monsters with Fred Savage, or The Goonies. I mentioned The Goonies before when I talked about Jailbreak. So the reason Stranger Things was such a big success is because people in my generation could watch it with their kids and be like, hey, that's from E.T. or that's from The Goonies. That's kind of a tribute to those 80s movies. And then you could watch those movies with your kids and relive E.T. and The Goonies and all that good stuff and live through them, live your childhood again through your own children. So that's pretty cool. That's why Stranger Things became such a hit. Plus, it's just really well done. Like, yeah, it goes back to the nostalgia of the 80s, and they're open, the creators are open about that. They were big Spielberg fans, and you see the E.T. connections in season 1. Some of the other nods to classic films from the 80s, and the music they use, the Kate Bush, the Metallica stuff, and just the general soundtrack. Whoever made the music, the theme music for Stranger Things, it's an amazing show, man. So that's very pivotal to me. I have to mention Stranger Things every time I write a story like this, because even though I grew up with E.T. and Spielberg stuff and the movie It and horror films that include children, Stranger Things is the most common reference that I use because it's such a great show. And the acting was really cool. So you can make a movie like this with child actors, even though it's going to get a little bit darker. Like, there's already a death in this where we see by page 5 Willie, who we didn't even get to know yet, but we just noticed that he's being chased through the woods. Maybe if I would sell this to a production company, they would want to bring his character to life more, to have more of a backstory. But I just went right to it. I didn't want to waste time with more scenes of all these kids hanging out together, because the spirit of this movie are these kids trying to win this soccer tournament as a tribute to their lost friend. So that's kind of what the emotional Disney side of this movie is, if you want to look at it like that. These kids lost one of their teammates tragically, and now they're trying to win this tournament, probably the last time they're going to be a team together, because, they're going to get too old later. And now it's like their last hurrah to win this damn tournament for their fallen comrade. And yeah, you can look at the motivation like that. So you don't have to really show anything else. You showed them playing a game together in the beginning. You showed them Zeke and Willie hanging out after the game, shooting penalty kicks. And then by page 5, Willie's already gone from this story. Although he comes back in the flashback later. But I don't think you need to really build his storyline anymore. It makes him even more tragic in a way that we just met this kid, and then within the first 5 minutes of this screenplay, he's already dead. So I think I would keep it like that. You don't have to show anything else, like these kids hanging out together, getting into trouble or whatever, to build that relationship up. I don't think you need to. The audience isn't stupid. People in the audience were kids. They were all kids. They would hang out together and get into trouble and do stupid kid things. Like, you don't have to set up the story any more than I did, unless it was really something the director needed or for some other reason. But I think it's a good way to really forcefully, in a way, capture the attention of the audience. If there's a tragic event like that within the first 5 minutes or the first 10 minutes of a movie, I can't think of any example. How did Jaws go? When was the first death in the movie Jaws? I don't remember. I think it was pretty early on, though. And then Brody started his story. But why does a movie work like that so well? Jaws is an example I've said before. A very simple story about government corruption, government cover-ups, government connection to the business community. Because that's really what it's about, if you think about it. You want to close down the beach town on July 4th when all the tourists come and all the businesses make their most money? Is it worth risking somebody dying for? Like, maybe 10 years ago, there was an Eagles game, Philadelphia Eagles versus the Minnesota Vikings. I think it got canceled because of a oncoming snowstorm or some shit. So they canceled the game till Tuesday, and I think at the time, Ed Rendell was the mayor or the governor, and he's like, man, you're all a bunch of pussies. He didn't say it like that, but he's like, this is why the Chinese are crushing America and everything, because we're too afraid to drive through the snow. And then the opposite side of that argument was, it's only a football game. You know someone's going to get in an accident. If you have a football crowd, 40,000, 60,000 people driving together to an Eagles game. So, I don't know. Why am I bringing that up? I don't know. It's that same type of the risk you take in life, the calculated risk. Or how should the mayor in Jaws, what should he have done? Should he have closed down the beach for the 4th of July, or just increased lifeguard presence, or warned the people at least? Like, if I was the mayor, I would have said, hey, townspeople, lend me your ears. There's probably a killer shark out there, so just hang out on the beach. Hang out on the beach, eat some pizza, drink some beer or margaritas, but there's probably a killer great white shark. But then you wouldn't have the movie, so that movie would suck. Thank you, Mayor. We will not go in the ocean now. Movie over. So yeah, you got to take liberties. You got to have the mayor, who's kind of a sleazy type of dude. Yeah, I don't know if that's the right word. He's more interested in the business interests so he can get reelected. And he's willing to take that risk that, one person died from a shark attack. It happens. It's not going to happen again. Da-na, da-na. Dun, 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 dun. But yeah, it's a good conflict in that, in the guise of a shark attack, but it's really about the political motivations of safety versus freedom. You could go that line, right? You give me freedom or give me death, or you can only have freedom or security. You can't have both. Whatever famous line that is from one of those founding fathers. You know, that's a typical line people say, libertarians. You can only have freedom or security, but if you try to do both, you lose both. I'm totally messing this up. You can either have liberty or freedom. Money or the hammer? That sounds bad. You can either have, help me Google, have liberty or security. I hope this finds this quote because I totally messed it up. You must choose between liberty and security. It's Benjamin Franklin. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Yeah, a lot of people were using that quote around 9/11 with the new types of surveillance systems and the NSA shit that came out later, and you have to take your shoes off at the airport and all that shit. That's a good quote, though. Like, I get what he's saying. Or, the Patriot Act. This was Ben Franklin in 1775, which was, he said this quote because he was talking about if the PA Assembly has the authority to tax the wealthy Penn family for frontier defense, arguing against trading self-governance for temporary security. I don't really understand that, though. I don't understand what he really meant by that. But it's a good quote nonetheless that I totally messed up. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. It makes sense as a general political argument. It just has a good Oscar Wilde or very clever type of appeal. Yeah, Google is talking about Edward Snowden here, kind of related to that. You want the government in your bedroom, in your internet, in your phone, in your workplace, in your church, everywhere. Do you want that if it makes you safer? But I'm not doing anything wrong. What do I care if the government's in my business? Yeah, but do you want to give anybody that type of power is the question. Because people say that, like, I don't break the law. Why do I care if there's this surveillance program that can spy on any American for any fucking reason? You don't even need a warrant. And kind of similar to the ICE thing, you can go into someone's home just on speculation and ruin someone's life based on that without a warrant. You're playing judge, jury, and executioner without any type of judicial restraint or constitutional oversight. It's a scary thing, but 9/11 was such a terrifying, traumatic event that when the Patriot Act came out and stuff like that, and this is only 20 some years ago, it's not that long ago, and people were probably afraid to speak out against it, or people were actually, fearful. Of course people were afraid at that point. That's the first time any attack happened on American soil, like, besides the Civil War. You could look at Pearl Harbor, but that's like on an island far away, even though Hawaii is a part of the United States, but it feels weirder because it's not an attack on Pearl Harbor, which was a army base. It's still horrific and a very tragic piece of American history, but compare that to skyscrapers falling in New York City, and it's like, just from the optics of it, it's terrifying. It doesn't matter where you are in the path of terror, and you could be the next victim depending on your location. Yeah, it's a scary thing when that shit happened. Nobody else had to deal with an event like that. Like, yeah, people said Pearl Harbor, but that was kind of a different thing. Just as horrific, just as terrifying, just as tragic. And we still remember that day every year. What was it, December 7th or 8th? This day will live in infamy. But yeah, when 9/11 happened, there was not a lot of voices of dissent saying, I don't know what, if Ben Franklin was around then, would he have said something like that about the NSA? If Ben Franklin was in the government in 2001, would he have stood up and said, no, NSA? Well, nobody even knew about it then, but some of the other security surveillance measures that were intended to protect people, what would Ben Franklin have said about that if he lived through that? So everything's relative. It's good to read your history. It's good to know about stuff like this so you could see different political arguments. But everything's relative. You don't know how the founding fathers what their philosophy would be today if they lived in modern times. The Second Amendment, they might have different opinions on it. The First Amendment, they might have different opinions. And it would be interesting to have a conversation like that. If they would bring those people back to life and they could see what the American experiment looks like today, 250 years later. Because, yeah, that is kind of a monumental thing. But even though 250 years seems like a lot, we are such a young fucking country, man. Such a young country. 250 years is nothing. That's not that long ago. But yeah, so that plays a part in this. I think I brought this up. I'm losing my train of thought because I was talking about Jaws and the political undertones of that movie. Which I love Jaws. If I didn't say it before, that was one of my favorite movies of all time. It's in my top 20 movies, definitely. Jaws, political undertones, and I'm gonna take a break after I look this stupid thing up. Undertones. I don't know if Spielberg ever talked about it. Alright, this is Google. Everything I search is through Google, so if this is true, who the fuck knows? But even Google is saying Jaws from 1975 is widely analyzed as a political thriller disguised as a creature feature, heavily reflecting 1970s distrust in government following Watergate in Vietnam. The film's primary political undertones focus on capitalism versus public safety, as Mayor Vaughn forces Chief Brody to keep beaches open despite fatal shark attacks to protect the town's summer economy. So yeah, it's pretty obvious. It's not even an undertone. Like, as a kid, you don't think about it. As a kid, you're just like, holy shit, there's a shark in the water eating people. But what does the shark represent? What are these anti-capitalism and greed? The film critiques the prioritization of profit over human life, with the shark acting as a force of nature, punishing a corrupt, money-driven community. Mayor Vaughn is representing corrupt leadership that denies the facts. That makes sense. if this is the Nixon era, then I could see Stevie Wonder had that song, Mr. Know-It-All. He's Mr. Know-It-All. Really good song. It's viewed as a critique of environmental degradation. That's almost like the M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Happening, nature fighting back against humanity. The character of Brody represents the overwhelmed, honest public servant trying to act, while the institutional forces fail, mirroring 70s disillusionment. The plot has even been compared to COVID-19, with officials balancing health dangers against economic ruin. Wow, yeah, I see that now completely. Living through that, now I understand what they're talking about. So I'm getting this from Google. This is Google, whatever. The first thing that came up when I searched Jaws, political undertones. And this is what Google had to say. So again, that's why a movie like that is so powerful. You watch it as a kid and it's just a scary movie about a shark eating people. And then you're like, every time you go to the ocean, you're thinking, dun 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 dun. And then you get older and you see how Spielberg brilliantly related that type of drama to the greater political spectrum or political conversation of the 70s. What was that, 1975? So Vietnam was over and I guess Nixon was done. Who was president? Was it Jimmy Carter coming up? Or was it Gerald Ford at that time? Who was president in 1975? That's a good question because I'm not good with dates like that. Yeah, it was Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford took over in 1975, 38th president, from 74 to 77. Now I'm confused. When was Jimmy Carter, like after that? Because Reagan started in 80. When was Jimmy Carter president? Like before that? Was Jimmy Carter... Yeah, I'm confused now. Jimmy Carter was the 39th, serving from 1977 to 81. Weird. So Reagan was 82? Alright, now it makes sense. So Reagan was 82 to 88, and then George Bush? I think so. Yeah, that's weird. I always thought Reagan started in 1980. I might have to adjust the timeline to some of my stories now. So Reagan's second term was what, 85? When was Reagan's second term? Reagan's second term was January 20th, 85. All right, I guess that still makes sense. In in the story I read yesterday, Rinse and Repeat Part 2, I think I said it in 1985 because I wanted it to be the second term of Reagan, so I guess I'm okay with that. I was just getting confused there. For some reason, I thought Reagan was 80 to 88. I'm very confused by this. What was he, till 90? So he started in 82. Wow, I feel really dumb for not knowing this. Reagan's presidency was 81 to 89. So then it was George Bush, HW. All right, I guess that makes sense. I'm just getting confused now. And then Clinton, Bill Clinton. All right, I think that's everything I wanted to mention so far. That's everything. maybe I'll get into some Tom Petty songs when I do part two of this at the end, because every song I wanted to use was from Into the Great Wide Open by Tom Petty. And it's a really great album produced by Jeff Lynne, who I really love Jeff Lynne stuff. ELO, some of my favorite albums, El Dorado and Time. Those two are perfect albums, man. Electric Lights Orchestra, Time from '81, and El Dorado. Those two albums are just very connected to my life. And maybe some other ones that I'm forgetting about. They have tons of great songs. Jeff Lynne's really a genius songwriter. But all right, I'm gonna cut it here. Even though this is almost, yeah, I'm at 3 hours exactly. This kind of flew by because of the pace of this story and the way this story is written. It's pretty easy to get through and picture in my head. I can see these characters clearly. When it's a type of script like this that's been done before, I'm going back to my love of Goonies, my love of Spielberg, my love of Stranger Things, and that's why it doesn't even feel like I've been talking for 3 hours, because I've heard when people speak about things that they're passionate about, they get a different temperature to their voice, a different their whole psyche changes when you're talking about something that you're very interested in, like sports or music or movies, because that's what most people are interested in, artistic stuff or athletics, which I said, sports is kind of an art form, at least in terms of a form of entertainment it is. But when I speak about stuff like this, it's very easy for me. I could speak for another hour, 2 hours about this, but I'm rambling at this point, and I often, when I get to a 3 hour talk, I start repeating myself and whatnot. I'm trying to go into my memory banks to think of movies. Like Little Monsters was a movie I just thought of today. Little Monsters with Fred Savage. That movie was pretty big for me, if anyone else remembers that. This kid like kind of goes into this other world, and there's that weird blue monster who kind of freaked me out as a kid. I think he had like a mohawk or something. Yeah, I'm looking at it now, the movie poster. Little Monsters from 1989. Oh, Howie Mandel. I didn't know that. I forgot that was Howie Mandel. Directed by Richard Greenberg. It's a good movie. I probably watched it like 20 times as a kid. I need to watch it again because I totally forget what it's about. But it's one of those like Pan's Labyrinth. I think it's kind of like that. Pan's Labyrinth was really good. Little Monsters connection to Pan. Let's see if that has anything. I kind of feel like they're similar movies. A kid that kind of gets immersed in this weird fantasy, kind of like Pan's Labyrinth. Little Monsters and Pan's Labyrinth. I don't think they're really anything that's strikingly connected. But I'm going to have to take a day and watch some of these old movies that I'm remembering now. But yeah, if you remember that, maybe you remember watching that as a kid if you're my age. Little Monsters. Or the other one I mentioned earlier, Little Giants. Both pretty classic movies that I'll have to revisit at some point. But I'll come back in a couple hours, finish this story, and talk about some Tom Petty connections that really didn't strike me until after I wrote this story. But Tom Petty's been a big influence on me as a songwriter. and the music side of my brain. I saw him in concert one time in Camden, at like whatever it was called, the Tweeter Center or whatever, probably high school. And I wasn't that excited to see Tom Petty. And then once I got there, every song was like, holy shit, I know this song, I know this song. So I grew to love Tom Petty more from seeing him live when I was probably like a young teenager. And yeah, it still holds up. It's I consider Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers the best American band. A lot of people say Aerosmith or The Doors or other stuff I'm forgetting. I think I had this conversation before. But Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, for me, I think they're the best American band. So many great songs that you'll hear at sporting events and rock out to. They kind of hit on every level for me because they're not being preachy. They're not taking you to some, I don't know, some metaphor land. They're just straight ahead rock and roll, country, folk music. They're not trying to be pretentious or anything. I don't know. I guess that's the best way I could describe that type of genre. That they kind of did it in their own unique way, even though maybe there's a Bob Dylan connection. Tom Petty and Bob Dylan. They did the Traveling Wilburys later with George Harrison and Roy Orbison, Jeff Lynne. So there's a connection between all those people. And yeah, the album that I'm just talking about now is Jeff Lynne produced it, Into the Great Wide Open. I remember watching that music video with Johnny Depp, A Rebel Without a Clue. And I fell in love with that song as a kid. But the entire album didn't hit me until later. And it's weird, and I'll get into that more when I come back again. I'll talk about the album more and how some of the lyrics led me to actually write some dialogue and some scenes in this movie. And I think that's an interesting thing when a music album can actually inspire the path of your characters, or you write a scene and then you listen to the album later as you're editing it and you notice these relations and you're like, did I do this on purpose? So I'll get into some of those details later when I come back.